Everyone, we'll get started momentarily. Good evening, everyone. Wow, this is a beautiful sight. You know, having gone through COVID and other things, to have this many smiling faces and wonderful individuals here within the chambers of the council is really moving. I'd like to welcome you all this evening and those online. And at this time, I will be calling to order the City of Bowie regular City Council meeting for Monday, February 6, 2023. In council chambers. It is now 8:01 p.m. and I would ask that everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. At this time, Madam City Clerk, would you confirm that we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum this evening. We have in chambers Councilmember Esteve, Councilmember Wolfley, Councilmember Ndebumadu, and Mayor Adams.
Thank you. And Councilmember Henri Gardner is in traffic on his way. At this time, I would now open it for a motion from Council member if there are any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Hearing none, we will move forward to citizen participation. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers this evening?
Yes, we do, Mayor. And then we also did receive a comment via email in regards to the noise ordinance, which will be later in the agenda.
Okay. Thank you, City Clerk. First, we will call forward David Rowland from 505 Jones Fall Court. Good evening, Mr. Rowland. Just adjust the mics. Whatever works best for you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And council members, Mr. FTs, how you doing? I'm David Rowland. We finally get to meet face to face. Excuse me. I have two issues, actually. The first one being the appearance of the city of Bowie. I'm not pleased with the appearance that I see, trash along the side of the highways, dead animals. In the summertime, it's the grass. It grows to at least maybe 3 feet tall. I have made calls to the highway administration on several occasions about several different subjects. And I know that it's not the responsibility of the city council. But then I thought back to when you come to our neighborhoods and want us to vote, you knock on the doors on 301 and Central Avenue, which is considered the state. So far to my knowledge, nobody say, hey, I'm not going to be involved in this election because it's not the city's property. So I hope that we can work together collectively. If the city of Bowie doesn't have enough people to maintain the grass, to pick up the trash, I can't understand why someone won't call the highway administration and say, hey, we need some help over here. And the second issue is the crime. The crime is a big issue in Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. And when I was a little boy, 8 years old, 51 years ago, I remember a song by Marvin Gaye. He wanted to know what was going on. And to my knowledge, Marvin Gaye wasn't a politician and he wasn't a prophet. We still have the same issues going on today. 51 years later, we still have the same issues with violence. And I can't understand why we can't come together collectively and solve this matter. You know, I look at the international and national terrorist acts and how they use technology to solve these problems, and they use drones and all types of different technology. But 51 years later, we cannot solve this issue, and I would like to know why. And then when it comes to the police, you know, I give the police high praise, but I don't know how many officers or how big the department is, but I would like to see more police presence. And I'm from the old school, and I believe in community policing. And I believe some of your officers do know what community policing is. Coming out and talking to the residents of Bowie. Not having a virtual meeting on the screen and picking and choosing what questions they're going to answer and what questions they're not going to answer. I believe we should all come together in a place like this or some type of forum where we can give some feedback and they give us feedback, tell us what's going on, what do we need to do, what is our part? And some things that I've came up with as far as the Kias and the Hyundais being stolen, nobody came out and say, hey, this is what we need to do, people. You put the bars on your steering wheels to prevent them from taking the airbags out of your car. There's a lot of different things we can do. We need to work collectively. It's not just the police issue, it's not just the city council issue, it's not just the mayor issue. It's not DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We need to come together collectively and find out how we stop all this violence. That's all I have to say. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. Next, we have Leslie Kunitz, 12503 Rambling Lane.
Thanks for pronouncing my name correctly. That's a good start. Okay, I want to talk about Bowie's public safety departments and Bowie's first responders tonight. And I've had the opportunity to meet many Bowie police officers and at the Citizens Police Academy and also at events like Coffee with a Cop and Bowie Night Out. Also had an experience of being rescued by the EMTs after they picked me up off the sidewalk on Chapel Forge Drive and restored my health on the spot. I have to realize that I'm not 25 years old anymore, and taking a 15-mile ride on my bicycle on a very hot and humid day is not a really good idea. Okay? I'm grateful to all the first responders in Bowie that are so very dedicated to keeping me and my family as safe as possible. Recent news brings to mind the video where police officers employed force that was inappropriate, resulting in the death of a person who died later on in the hospital. As I see it, the hard part is that some of the public sees all police as out of control, and that is not the case, particularly here in Bowie. As Washington, D.C. Police Chief Conti said, unfortunately, when things like this happen, we are all painted with the same brush. The scenario does affect our police officers in town, and I think it is in our best interest to let our officers know that we have confidence in them to do the right thing, and I certainly do. During the January Public Safety Committee meeting, which I listened in on, there were many presentations regarding the future needs of the police and fire departments due to the growth that Bowie will encounter. Projection metrics that were presented, including increases in population that will occur due to more housing and other elements. In my opinion, PG County's new zoning changes will make Bowie the high-density capital of Maryland. Comparisons to other communities that are similar in characteristic to Bowie were presented. Some of the comparisons included the ratios regarding the number of law enforcement officers per 1,000 inhabitants, and I urge you to take a close look at that and be very careful in looking at those. With the impending population growth of our city also comes other aspects like more businesses, schools, and the like that will require increases in the capabilities of all aspects needed to provide for public service, public safety rather. Good proactive planning by the City Council will be needed to fund these needs. Due to the environment we exist in today regarding a high degree of inflation, it is my feeling that the budgetary funds requested be further increased to address these needs. These items are not wants, but important needs to help keep the Bowie community safe. The bottom line is we send our first responders out to do our jobs, where in many cases they risk their lives to keep us safe. So let's show them that they are important to us and keep them as safe as possible by providing financial and emotional support for their needs. I have great confidence that the members of the Bowie City Council will provide the funding that will furnish the personnel and the equipment needed, not wanted, but needed, to keep the city as secure and as safe as possible. We are all in this together, so let's do the right thing by supporting our dedicated public safety departments and meeting their needs.
Thank you.
Okay? Thanks.
Next, we have Ann Johansson. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Ann Johnson.
Johnson.
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's,
I probably wrote it incorrectly.
thank you very much. If you'd like, you can pull the mic down a little closer to you or slide it over, whatever's convenient for you.
I'm here to speak in favor of the EDC letter that will be presented later this evening. The City Council of Bowie should support the EDC recommendations. In particular, the following items should be given immediate attention. More lighting in the, excuse me, more lighting in neighborhoods, resurfacing of neighborhood streets, repair of curbs, repair of lights on bridge. In addition, the following items should be considered as part of the revitalization plans. Pop-up shops, a day to walk historical areas, a guided tour, an open house, holiday house, studios for music, dance lessons, painting. Members from the stakeholders should be involved in the planning stages so that ideas from all groups can be considered, evaluated, and incorporated into final plans. And I want to say that I have an article that I'm going to give to Mr. Henry, that in July of 1999, the Bowie City Council was putting together a master plan for Old Town Bowie. And beautiful plans. At that particular meeting, I was not in favor of some of the items that were being presented as far as putting too many businesses that were not needed in Old Town. As you can see, that's been many, many years. Very few things have changed since 1999. We've gotten a new bridge, which no one likes. We have a new restaurant that was in the works. Parking was provided for the restaurant. Some infrastructure was done, but not much. And so we're back again, another meeting 30 years later, and hopefully something will be done with the new master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. William C. Green, Jr.
William E., sir.
Hello, Mr. Green.
Good evening, Mayor,
Good evening.
Council, good evening, city staff, Mr. Lott, and everyone. I'm here, piggyback on what Ms. Ann Johnson just mentioned. Cut it short, I'm off in an olive branch tonight. I'm not up here to fight any battles. I'm a community leader there in the old town of Bowie. Have been, say knocking at 70s, the age 70 door, just knocking at it, okay? But been here for a long time. Just to give a little history about myself. And another one of the reasons why I am very concerned about the old town Bowie and the surrounding area. I lived in a farmhouse right over there just quarter of a mile from Allen's Pond, in the middle of the fields. You got cornfields on one side, wheat on another, soybean, corn, and tobacco, okay? I lived there, and there was not one single day that I regret being there on that farm. You could run for miles, and there was no issues, no problems. The neighbors, we networked together, black and white. You know, we shared those crops. We shared family opportunities. You know, we enjoyed ourselves. Well, I've seen things grow tremendously with the Old Town of Bowie area, and also here in the New Bowie is what we call that also. And what we're looking at, just to sum this up, again, what Ms. Johnson just mentioned to you, just carrying it from there, we're looking at that bridge. It's a major, major concern at this time. Now, I'm here tonight, not just I'm not representing the organization that she's with, but I'm representing the residential members that's of that community. And their biggest, one of the big, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I got 5 things here that they're mainly concerned with. The bridge repairs. I've taken some of you, the city council members, and we've walked around in the community, and we have observed that bridge. The guardrails, it's corroded, okay? And it needs to be replaced. It's a safety issue. It's also an eyesore. The sidewalks, I think the city or the state, they put in new sidewalks and they lined it with red bricks. It's falling apart. What happened to that, okay? This is what we're concerned about. Who's responsible for the upgrade and the keep of those sidewalks that was put in? We also have some sidewalks that's been there since the landfill. The deli used to be a place that the trash trucks could stop, get their lunch or breakfast early in the morning, and they would pull the trucks on those sidewalks. Those sidewalks still exist today. They're mashed down into the ground. They are cracking. They're deteriorating. That is not the way Old Bowie should be looking as a historical landmark. Okay? Again, the revitalization for some of the old structure. I've had a chance to talk, just like you all have, with the owner. He said he doesn't really want to put any money into it. Maybe the city council. I made some recommendations. I feel as though some of those structures can be saved. He doesn't think so. He talked about putting some office buildings that would be favorable in terms of what's already there in Old Bowie with the buildings and structures that we do have, or maybe some townhouses. I don't think we need any more of those. We would like to preserve and save those old structures. Repair on the streets and roads. We're looking at some of the roads. Some of them have not been repaired since Miss Ingrid Turner was in office. She came personally to the community with the state, with the city, and also with some of their political figures. And we walked that community that day. When we got through with the officials, trust me, they were taking off ties and coats and everything else, and they asked me, Mr. Green, is there anything else? I said, sure, let's walk to the other side of the bridge. We were out there until about 2 or 3 o'clock in the evening, trying to find out what could be done. Well, thanks to her, we was able to get those streets paved, had guardrails put on the bridge, and put in the area where those cars were approaching that area. But moving on from there, we would also like to see if we get anything in there and can salvage some of those shops. We'd like to see some mom and pop shops. Again, Ms. Johnson covered some of those areas. I won't go into a lot of details with that. Again, I'd like to thank you. I'm going to end it right here. And I'm going to leave a list for you for some of the residents that are interested in trying to get some of these things done. Okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Next, Mr. Carl Caton.
Good evening, worthy mayor,
Good evening, Carl.
council,
Good evening.
family, friends. My resident neighbor, Mr. Green, was the gentleman who got me here for the similar discussion he just brought to your attention, the address of the bridge and the neighborhood streets. My concern is more personal because of the street that I live on. There's an issue on the block that I live on between my neighbor's house and my house, drainage. Years ago, before I moved into the neighborhood, I'm a recent resident of the Bowie community in '07, but the street was curbed and the street raised with asphalt on 10th Street in Old Bowie. And that addition of the curb and the asphalt raised the level of the road, which cause drainage into my neighbor's driveway, and also helps prevents my drainage from being running off. So that's a particular concern that I was wanting to address. It's drainage of that street. Adding a drain between my property and that property so that that drainage doesn't run into his driveway, and maybe allowing my drainage to be excavated out to the street. Very particular concern that I had. But in the same topic of what Mr. Green and Ms. Johnson had brought to your attention about bringing some road repair. Really quickly, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next up is, it looks like Ms. Vera Teasdale.
Thank you, it's close, it's Verna.
Okay.
Hello, Verna, how are you?
I've been called other things.
It's just, oh well.
And I certainly concur with those who are speaking on behalf of Old Bowie, and that's the reason that I'm here this evening. But first I want to, and I'm actually here as a member of the Old Bowie Arts and Heritage Committee, to thank you for your support and your interest in Old Bowie. Thank you particularly for your support of the 2021 Old Bowie Celebrates Festival. It was an amazing success. It demonstrated that Old Bowie has the capacity to draw people from miles and miles around. The 2022 festival was on track to be even better. It was combining with the International Festival. It was going to be incredibly successful until inclement weather shut it down. It never happened. Both the vendors and the attendees are looking forward to the 2023 Old Bowie Festival, which will again combine Old Bowie Celebrates with the International Festival. Every member of the Old Bowie Arts and Heritage Committee has committed to help make this 2023 festival a success. Every member of the committee. We have the people power. We have an festival date, which is Saturday, October 7th. What we don't have is the money to fund the festival. You've been gracious in allocating funds for the festivals, and we have been very conscientious in how those funds are used. So please accept our request to fund the 2023 festival in the same amount approved for the 2022 festival. The festivals are one step toward revitalizing Old Bowie. I'm looking forward to hear, in addition to what you've already heard, I'm looking forward to hearing what the Economic Development Committee's recommendations are for additional steps to revitalize Old Bowie. I know that working together, Old Bowie can be realized for all the potential that it has. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this moment, I would like to recognize in the chambers Councilwoman Ingrid Harrison from the Prince Watson now. It's going to take a moment, but we just wanted to make sure that we recognize you being here, and thank you for being here this evening.
She's right there. She's right here.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
Welcome home.
And the reason we made sure to put the Watson, as I'm putting it all out, she was recently married to Senator Ron Watson. So again, congratulations on that. And she's like, please move on. At this time, we will move into presentations. And we are looking at the adoption of Proclamation P223, recognizing Keivonn Woodard for his many achievements. Are you going to read the proclamation? Do you have it? Yeah, we can go down. But I was just saying, you have it?
Councilmember Gardner, we'll need a
I'm
motion
gonna
to
look
adopt the
for it. And here it
proclamation before
is.
you
Thank
present
you.
it.
Let's go on down.
All right.
Would you-
I'd like to make a motion. You make the motion, and I'd like to second that motion. Oh, will do. Oh, I like, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Yes, go ahead, make the motion, Robson.
Councilman Henri
Go ahead, Robson.
Gardner has requested the privilege of reading the proclamation this evening, and so we'll know.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Robson.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to adopt Proclamation P-2-23 recognizing Keivonn Woodard for his many achievements.
And I'd like to second that.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, the motion carries. All right.
Good evening, everyone. Also, could I have County Council Member Watson to come forward with us, as well as Miss Alexis Streets, and I'm looking for Miss Candy Daly. Yes, if you could, Candy, and also Mr. Rodney Chambers, as well as Miss Veronica Fountain. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming this evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. The mayor and I and the council want to recognize our youngest member here tonight that is a part of the Bowie hockey team. And also, I'd like to invite our president of the Bowie Hockey Club. Also, Lori, if you would come forward, please. We have a young man here tonight that has made some black history of his own at his very young age. And we want to celebrate him and recognize him. So, Mr. Mayor, if you would.
Okay. City of Bowie, Maryland, a proclamation of the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, recognizing Keivonn Woodard for his many achievements. Whereas Keivonn Woodard is a 9-year-old deaf hockey player for the Bowie Hockey Club, and whereas Keivonn has been skating since he was 4 years old and is doing very well on the ice. And whereas Keivonn, in addition to his hockey achievements, coach, interpreter, and others, is following both his dreams. Keivonn, in addition to his hockey achievement, most recently gained the spotlight for guest starring in the new HBO show, The Last of Us. And in following his dreams, both on and off the ice, is breaking barriers and is an inspiration for others to do the same. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, hereby recognizes and commends Keivonn Woodard for his hard work and dedication to hockey and acting, which has resulted in many achievements. The Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland, is pleased to show their support for Keivonn and wishes him well and with all his future endeavors. Presented by the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland on February 6, 2023, Timothy J. Adams, Mayor. Congratulations.
Can I get everyone to stand and applaud Keivonn
All right, here we go.
and all that he has done? Is Keivonn's mother here? Yes. Oh, you want and grandmother. And grandmother. If I could get the mother and grandmother to come up and yes, and also I want, if Councilmember Watson would come forward, she also has something from the county for our youngest member of Bowie.
Well, I don't know how I could top that proclamation. I won't read everything, but I'm just so honored, delighted to celebrate this young man. And just want to read just a couple of things from the proclamation from the county. Whereas 9-year-old Keivonn Woodard, a Bowie resident, is already making an impact in our community, breaking barriers as his team's only Black and deaf hockey player who has been playing the sport since he was 4 years old. Whereas in a recent interview, Keivonn's mother encouraged parents to support their children because you never know how they may bloom in the future when it comes to their skills and network, and to encourage them in whomever they want to be. And whereas in that same interview, Keivonn encouraged young people not to be afraid to try, because with his parents' support, he overcame his fears, auditioned, and got the role with The Last of Us. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Prince George's County Council that Keivonn is an awesome young person, a wonderful source of community pride, and we are delighted that Keivonn is a Prince Georgian. We wish him well as he continues to go after his dreams. Signed, Ingrid S. Watson, Council Member for District 4, and Thomas E. Dernoga, Council Chair. Congratulations.
All right, Keivonn. All right. And tonight, I've invited just a few friends also, and members of our business community who want to show some love and support to the family and to Keivonn. I'm gonna ask if I could have Miss Candy Daly come forward and say a few words.
Hi there. So we just want to show you how excited we are to have you here in the city of Bowie and representing Prince George's County. And we wanted to give you a gift card for you and your family for Ruby Southern Kitchen for $100 for you all to come and have dinner with us when you like.
I know. Also, I'd like to have Miss Alexa Street to come forward. Thank you so much, Miss Daly. Thank you so much. Of Ruby's Southern Kitchen. And Miss Alexa Street, if you would come forward, okay?
Hi, I just want to congratulate you in all that you do and your future endeavors. And I wanted to give a token of my appreciation from the Dessert Junkie, a gift card of $50 so you can come in and choose whatever you like.
Thank you, Miss Street. Thank you, Miss Street of the Dessert Junkie. And also, Mr. Rodney Chambers, if you would come forward, please.
On behalf of Party HQ, we want to say congratulations. And so we are so proud of your accomplishments on and off the ice. When you have some free time, we invite you and your team to come visit us at Party HQ. We're going to give you guys 2 hours of free bowling, 1 hour of unlimited arcade games, and pizza, fries, and soft drinks. So once again, there's bowling, unlimited arcade, pizza, fries, and unlimited drinks, and we hope to see you guys soon at the end of your season or whenever you want to come. All right?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chambers of Party HQ. Thank you. Really put some smiles on the entire audience. And last, I'd like to have Miss Penny Cannon from SATAC to come forward. Thank you.
Penny's giving me that look. Okay. I just wanted to say on behalf of Systems Application and Technologies, we also wanted to honor you and would like to present with you $100 in Amex gift cards to use however you'd like to. Sounds like we have an idea where he'll be spending it. You can just get it.
And if I could have Lori, the president of the hockey club, please come forward, Lori.
Okay. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I think Keivonn and his teammates are very excited about Party HQ. I don't know how anybody can top that, but thank you. I think I said it. Oh, well. I wanted to let Keivonn's head coach, Chris Ponzerski, come up and say a few words about Keivonn. Chris?
Come on, Chris. Oh, you're the reason, part of the reason Keivonn is here. Oh, that is very sweet. All right, thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
So, obviously, we're here to congratulate Keivonn on all his achievements on the ice and on the big screen, but I want to take this moment to address something else about Keivonn. His character is the reason we're here today. As you see, his friends, his teammates, his family, he brings out so much, as you can tell, charisma and happiness in everything he does. And he tries to make everybody a better person. And what I mean by that is, I can't tell you how many times this year I've had a parent come up to me and say to me, my child's trying to learn sign language so they communicate better with him. As you can see, this team is extremely cohesive. They get along great on the ice and off the ice, which is why they're all here today to congratulate him. And he is a vital member to this team. They have bonded, and it is amazing to be a part of this team. But it's not just the children. I should point out this real quick. Keivonn also likes to help the coaches. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday, in the middle of our game, Keivonn made a nice pass. I tried to tell him nice pass, using his translator to show me how to sign it, and I was wrong. And he very quickly, in the middle of the game, showed me the correct way to say it, and then through his translator said, come on, coach, if you're going to do it right. But that's the type of character he is, and it's been an absolute pleasure coaching him this year. And Keivonn, whether you like it or not, you've become an ambassador to this game. You have opened doors for people that never knew they had the opportunity to play. It's been a pleasure. I want to congratulate myself. We'd let all of your teammates come up here, but we'd be here till midnight, and we're not going to do that. So on behalf of them, congratulations. On behalf of the Bowie Hockey Club, congratulations. And the last thing I want to point out to you is, I know your father's looking down on you right now, and he couldn't be more proud of all that you've done and all you've accomplished. So congratulations, buddy.
Thank you, Coach Chris, and thank you all very much. Thank you, everyone, for support. Yes, we want to get some photos, the entire team, and we have also Veronica Fountain, which is from Simply Bowie, so she is covering the story tonight that she wants to be with the family. So, Mom and Grandma, if you would make yourselves available for a couple words for Ms. Fountain. Thank you. Let's applaud Mom, too. Mom is a single mother, and she does this all on her own, and I just want to celebrate you as well. Thank you, God
Let me give this to Keivonn.
Yes, please, all kids.
Okay.
Yes, all, everyone. It takes a team, right? It takes a team to win. Oh. I feel like I'm in a group of puppies.
I think Keivonn's in there somewhere.
I'm gonna let you guys spread out here.
Come on out, Keivonn, so we get a picture.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. Now, there you go. And
Keivonn, where are you? All right. There we go. Everybody smile.
I'm sure you can all be seen. Everyone smile.
Give me that handshake.
Thank you. For your wall, yes. Okay, I'm gonna stop out.
I'm sorry. Prince George's County.
She wanted. Lord, thank you, sir.
Thank you all very much.
Hold on a second. All right.
Again, thank you, everyone, and also to our local businesses who came out tonight and to support us. Thank you all. Thank you. It's all about community. It's all about community. Thank you again. Thank you, my young people. Thank you. I look forward to seeing future presidents and senators and leaders and hockey players, professional hockey players. All right. All right, Lord. You want for me? Everyone, the special is still streaming on HBO Max currently, so you can go on HBO Max at any time and still see the special. And he'll be on next week also on the 12th. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you again, everyone. Thank you again, and please be safe this evening. We will now be moving forward with the council meeting. At this time, we will move to city boards and committees, appointments and reappointments, and swearing in. Mr. Connie Faulkner was interviewed on January 17th for appointment to the Diversity Committee. Council concurred to appoint him to the committee as a member for a 2-year term. Please move to appoint him, and I open the floor to motion.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. Nay vote, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Would you please come forward, if you are here, Mr. Coney? Faulkner, and we will administer the oath. I got it. No, please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Kennedy Faulkner,
Do swear or affirm
do swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
and I will be faithful and bear true faith and allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and the laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
executes the office of regular, state what you're being sworn in for,
execute for the office of Diversity Council,
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
Congratulations and welcome to the committee.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Here, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so very much for your willingness to support the city.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Good stuff. It's good seeing you again. All right. Thank you again.
Mr. Mayor, when we get to the portion of the agenda where the EDC presents, do you mind quickly asking all Old Bowie residents who are here tonight to stand and be recognized?
I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you, sir.
We will now move to council announcements. I will take the first on that and just saying, I think we saw this evening a real spirit of the city of Bowie, that unity, that opportunity for all, and I'm just so very proud of where we are. I'd also like to remind us again that this is Black History Month, and I think it's important that we understand and remember that it's about a unity in the city, and it's about recognizing all the contributions that all of us have made. So having said that, I will now turn it over to, I think, Councilwoman Mdabamadu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the pronunciation. Good evening, everyone. I just want to make a brief announcement. Over the last couple of days, I've received some emails inquiring about the processes of how businesses get vetted to come into the city of Bowie. And I did just want to provide a little bit of context on that and share that the city of Bowie, in terms of the city council as well as the city staff, we do not control what types of businesses do come into the city. That the main permit that most businesses apply for when they are coming into any jurisdiction in Prince George's County is a use and occupancy permit, and that's entirely controlled through the county. However, when it comes to vetting the viability of a business, that is up to the landlord to do that type of vetting to establish the viability of the business and what businesses they do want in their sections. So I did want to provide that context because I think there has been a little bit of confusion that the city of Bowie has any sort of say into the types of businesses that might come in here. We do have separate permits that are specific to the city of Bowie, which I can ask our city manager or our economic development director to speak more on at a later time. However, when it comes to the viability of a business and the type of business, we do not have any vetting say in that. So I just wanted to address that. There have also been some concerns about crime increase in South Bowie. I know that our police chief is going to give an update on that this evening, so I look forward to hearing that update in terms of addressing residents' concerns on the increase of crime in South Bowie in particular, which is the district that I represent. But in terms of the business viability, we don't unfortunately have a say in that. Now, I don't say that to say that we cannot be an advocate and a conduit and represent what you would like to see and attracting the types of businesses that you would like to see in the city. But when it comes to actually having a say in whether the business can set up shop in one of those private, one of those private landlord situations, we don't unfortunately have a say in that. So I just wanted to provide clarity. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Any other council announcements? Hearing none, we will go to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a report today. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to the consent agenda. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now move on to old business, which is the adoption of ordinance 0123, amending Bowie City Code.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, we have the supervisor of our code compliance division and the city attorney prepared to speak on that particular ordinance.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Good evening. I'm Jamie Braun, Code Compliance Manager for Bowie. We are presenting this ordinance in trying to address some issues related to the commercial properties and the party houses that have been accumulating in the city of Bowie over the last few years. So this ordinance is in attempts to defer or try and get these types of uses not profitable within the city. So we're asking for your approval.
Okay.
Sorry. One major impact is the cost of the fines. So our fines were the same for residential properties versus commercial properties, and we've found that that's not working for the businesses, for compliance. So we have increased the fines for certain violations that relate to disturbing the public and surrounding areas when it comes to commercial properties. And then again, dealing with these party houses where people have short-term rentals and they are renting their homes out and a party ensues. There's also situations around Bowie where they can rent out their pool. And same situation, there's having loud parties and disturbing the public. The police department and code enforcement have been working to deter this, but we needed stronger legislation so that we could get them to, again, not be profitable if they had these things. And that is the major impact, we hope.
Okay, thank you. Any questions at this point? Yes, go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much for all your good efforts on this, and you and the rest of the staff that works on a lot of these nuisance problems that we have that come up. It's truly detrimental to the quality of life for our residents, so you're doing good work, and the police are here this evening as well. I'd like to say a special thank you to you as well for your collaborative efforts when we have particular properties that are problematic, because it's often more than just a simple ordinance of noise, or there's usually some other type of problem as well. So thank you very much for the collaborative effort on that. Ms. Braun, can you speak to what the dollar values are on the penalties for both individuals and for businesses?
Sure. So when it comes to only certain violations of this ordinance, when it relates to the party houses, so you're talking about yelling, screaming, loud music, things like that, those fines will go up from $100 for the first offense and $200 for the second offense to $500 for the first offense. I'm sorry. Yes, $500 for the first offense and $1,000 for every subsequent offense. And again, that's hopefully going to deter people because they can rent out those pools or rent out their homes by the hour. And hopefully these fines will deter people from trying to use them that way.
Yeah, and I want to speak out to the community at large as well. What this means is that we actually have to report them. And this is, I know that this is been a sore point for a lot of people, that problems don't seem to get resolved because the penalties just weren't adequate. But I think it's important if you're being adversely affected by these properties, then you need to be part of the solution and report each and every time. Don't consider it. Don't worry, somebody else is going to do it. Please do indeed jump out there and make the call. Get code enforcement involved, the police involved if need be, to help rectify these problems. So thank you very much. I do have a question on the application. When a citation is the citation made against the perpetrator of the problem, that is to say, the one hosting the party, or is it going to be the owner of the property or leaseholder? How are we sorting through that?
The noise ordinance only refers to the property owner being responsible for these violations. And so we cannot at this time charge anybody who is renting or operating. Right now it's the property owner only.
Now, is that something that we could pursue with, not necessarily this evening, because I think it'll take a bit more work. Is that something that can be pursued with city staff and an attorney to see if that's possible as well?
I'm going to defer to Alyssa on that, please.
We can talk further about it. However, it's difficult within the municipal infraction system to cite individuals separate from the property. The system is designed to where violations are attached to a property. We can look into it. I'm a little bit skeptical that it's something we would be able to do. I mean, there would be an identification problem to begin with. The property owner is readily identifiable, but individuals who are creating a noise problem at any given moment are transient. I think it's going to be hard to find out who those individuals are on a regular basis.
And one more follow-up question. So how does that apply in the context of noise from vehicles? Is it, again, the same situation where it's applied to the owner of the vehicle?
Presumably, I think, if vehicles are parked on a property and, making noise, we can identify that. When you have vehicles that are passing through, I think they're tremendously difficult to enforce noise ordinances against.
But we do have that as part of the ordinance, I believe, that includes noise nuisance problems emanating from vehicles as well.
Well, so that, if like a vehicle is parked on a property and blasting its radio, right, then it's stationary and we can address it. But when you're talking about cars that need their mufflers fixed or something like that, and and the noise is passing through, that's going to be difficult.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Ms. Braun, thank you very much. I do greatly appreciate it. I know it always seems that the cards are stacked against, in the pursuit of a quieter, more gentle neighborhood. But hopefully this will help, and I do appreciate your efforts and the efforts of the entire team, because I know that my constituents, certainly in a number of neighborhoods, have certainly Forest Drive, Buckingham, a few other places where we've had a number of problems. So thank you very much.
Okay, at this time, I have a couple of questions for you, and that is just making sure that everyone understands that we've changed the time from daytime from being from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. to now 9 a.m. to at least 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., moving it up an hour. Is that correct for the daytime hours?
So it has been 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. for my career, and we are complying with the county's ordinance who, they passed it in 2021 to go from the 7 to 11, actually, to 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. So yes, we are shortening it by an hour, 100%, and then
The nighttime now goes from,
9 p.m. to 7 a.m.
okay,
nighttime.
good. I do have a question also about being able to make sure that it's fair and how we enforce this. I know the decibel level, I think it's like 1/3 per decibel. Can you give us some more information so that people will understand how it's determined whether or not something is a loud noise or when someone is playing, so that we could have a good understanding of what people may be able to measure themselves to make sure that they aren't causing an infraction?
So the easiest example I can provide is if it is louder than a lawnmower, it is in violation of the city code. That's the easiest way to prevent it. But a sound meter level is what the City of Bowie code enforcement officers have to take. And so if it exceeds the sound level threshold, then it would be a violation of the city code. We also have an entire section 13-2 or 3, sorry, that deals with things that are disturbing to neighbors. So any loud yelling, screaming, music, amplified sound, horns, signaling devices, and such, if they disturb the public peace, then they can report that to the City of Bowie, and it can be a violation. It has to be witnessed by 2 people from 2 separate households, and they have to be willing to sign an affidavit in the fact that it's disturbing their public peace. So, again, we have the decibel level, which is what the code enforcement officers have the capability of measuring when they can witness it. But if it is happening at an hour that maybe the police department aren't available or the code enforcement officers aren't available, there is another way of reporting that, and that is the 2 affidavits from 2 separate households. And I think the city attorney has something to add.
I just thought it might be helpful to focus on the definition that we're inserting here of unreasonably loud noise. I think that will help people understand what we're talking about. So it means noise of such intensity, frequency, duration, and character that it may harm the public health, safety, or general welfare, or significantly interfere with the enjoyment of life and or property. And reasonably loud noise includes, and I think this part is very helpful, but is not limited to, noise that results in hearing loss, interferes with people's sleep, with their communications, with their work, or other daily activities. So I think most of us have a good idea of the level of noise that's going to interfere with our neighbors' ability to carry on their daily activities, and that's what you're going to have to be careful to avoid, because some people, let's face it, are just thoughtless.
Okay, thank you. I think that gives the citizens a better view of what that pertains to and how those sound levels affect. All right, at this time, Councilmember Steve, you have a question?
Real quick. There's an equestrian facility in Northridge that operates. They usually start their events at 7 a.m. Residents have complained for years about noise, but as the equestrian folks are quick to remind us, it wasn't their decision to build a subdivision around their historic property. How would they be impacted by something like this?
As far as I understand, that equestrian center is not incorporated in the city limits and therefore is not subject to the city code violations.
So they would be exempt. Another question, why are we exempting the city, county, and state from this?
So that's mainly for events, special events and situations where they need to come through and have possibly some loudspeakers or notifications.
Just because we choose to organize a May Day parade doesn't mean residents on Bel Air Drive want to participate in it from their living rooms. Why are we exempting ourselves? It wouldn't, even during the daytime hours? Those noises wouldn't get too loud?
I would add that the majority of city events are not going to exceed these decibel levels.
Okay. All right, sounds good. The first violation is 500, the second is 1,000. How many warnings come before those fees apply?
At minimum one.
Okay. So they get at least one warning, just letting them know, heads up, the rules have changed. These are the new fines, just be aware.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilman Garden?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have just one very brief question. How do you anticipate on getting the word out? I mean, are you going to, of this change? Is it possible that we could perhaps do something door to door? Because I like the residents to know about the change, and maybe on a bold sheet of paper, I don't know, saying these are the new changes, be aware this is coming. If you're planning any upcoming parties or renting your pools or whatever, then they'll have this advance notice so that they won't plan for it. And then also it'll send a signal to neighbors saying, hey, this year Paul and Betty Johnson can't have this pool party because we have this new ordinance in the city, and maybe I'll make sure that they get it. But I wanted to know if it's possible, Maddie, or we could somehow get this out, or everyone can get this out. City manager.
Well, we have a communications division, and we will assign them with the task of marketing this so that everybody will know. And we've got social media outlets, we've got electronic media, and in the same fashion that we communicated with people regarding the COVID-19. So we can do that. I do fall short of mail out because that's $6,000-7,000 every time we do it, and so I think we can get the word out electronically and through social media.
Thank you, City Manager, because I would really want the word to go out as strongly as possible, because it had last year, I guess, with the pandemic and things reopening, last summer was a nightmare for a number of residents here in the city of Bowie. I know personally I responded to a number of complaints. But yeah, so if residents knew in advance that it weren't likely to or should not occur, then maybe it'll deter them from doing so. But thank you, City Manager.
We're going to tell them as soon as you vote to approve this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hearing no further questions at this time, I would like to open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
We do not have anyone signed up this evening, but like I mentioned earlier, we did receive a comment via email, which was forwarded to council earlier this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you. Hearing that, the public hearing is now closed and eligible for action. I will open it to the council.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, to adopt ordinance 0-1-23.
And I'd like to second that.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
We will now move on to adoption of ordinance 0223, amending the Bowie City Code.
Now, Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance 0223, which is a summary, and Maddie's going to talk in some detail about a authorization from you all to us, authorizing us to enter into a franchise agreement regarding the cable franchise agreement that currently we have with Verizon. And so, Maddie, you got it.
Good evening. I'm Maddie Bizzurdo, the Business Operations Manager. I'm here to request that you approve ordinance 0-23, amending Chapter 12, the Cable Communications Code. The reason we're asking for you to do that is because we are finally, after many, many years, have finally come to an agreement with Comcast. Next month, we will be bringing the new franchise agreement to you for you to approve. But before we do that, we'd like to make sure that our code is well, basically ties in with the new franchise agreement so that there's no conflicts. We would like to add a new provision to make sure that everything is kosher.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, hearing none, I will open the public hearing.
Mayor, we have no one signed up for this item this evening, and no comments were received.
Thank you, City Clerk. At this time, I will declare the public hearing closed. I will now call for, open the floor to a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt ordinance O-2-23.
I'd like to second that, Mr. Mayor.
It's been moved and properly second. Call for the question. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now move on to new business. The EDC on Old Town Bowie. The Economic Development Committee will present recommendation for Old Bowie revitalization and placemaking. I would ask that all residents, if you don't mind, from Old Town Bowie who are here, would you please stand for a moment? And I'd like to say thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Rowell. Good evening, Ms. Muckle. Good evening. Good evening.
John Henry?
Council, the Chair, Yolanda Muckle, and the Vice Chair, Andrew Roud, are here this evening on behalf of your Economic Development Committee to present some recommendations based on their extensive study of Old Town Bowie. I believe Mr. Roud will be the lead speaker tonight.
Good evening. Please step up.
Good evening. Nice to be here tonight and not have a vote. Probably lose it.
You're not in your official capacity this evening?
That's right, I'm off the clock.
Okay. Well, we're happy to see you anyhow.
Okay, good to see you guys. Good evening. My name's Andrew Roud, Vice Chair of the EDC, and with me is Yolanda Muckle, the new Chair of the EDC. Over the past year, essentially, almost a year, we've done a study with the Old Town Bowie revitalization. First and foremost, I'm speaking as former Chair of the EDC, not as St. John Properties, so our company's not involved in this. It was more or less just work of the EDC. So in all, we had about a total of 9 different activities and actions, whether we had an open meeting where we had visiting guests come in, we had architects and engineers come in, we had briefings from other areas. We brought in front of you guys last June, I think it was, Councilman Crimmins from Kensington. And that was more or less just to kind of look for best practices, not to say that, you know, Bowie needs to do what was done there, but just to give people an idea of what was done there. So with the hearings, we kind of started in March of 22, and that's where we had Councilman Crimmins give a presentation, a detailed presentation to the EDC. And then in June, Councilman Crimmins came here and gave you the presentation. And then we had a series of meetings internally. We went in August to tour Old Town Kensington. We had the mayor and the councilman walk us through the town. Most of you were there, I think. We had a lot of the people from the EDC come. And then in September, we had an architect and an engineer come in and kind of give us an overview of what they felt you could do for Old Town Bowie. And then through October, November, and we had general discussions, detailed discussions, kind of roughing out the ideas. And then in December, we had stakeholder presentations. And some of the stakeholders that have been present during our meetings have been Bowie State University, various businesses, churches, the Bowie United Methodist, commercial property owners, government, city, county, state, Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce, the Huntington City Community Development Corporation, the Huntington Community Center, Park and Planning, Huntington Heritage Society, Knights of St. John, Old Town Bowie Arts and Heritage Steering Committee residents. I know earlier this evening we had, bear with me. Shoot, where's my note? Yeah, I saw Mr. Green, affectionately known as the mayor of Old Town Bowie, and Verna Teasdale and Ann Johnson. So we had a lot of great discussions, I think. And then we've submitted a letter to the council, which you've seen. I think. It's in your package. But before I go through the letter, I think some of the things that we were talking about essentially is what we discovered is it's all about placemaking. In order to have any sort of viability of what you're going to try to achieve, you have to make it a place you want to go to. And right now, I think Old Town Bowie's got the bones for it. It definitely does, as far as what I can see as a real estate developer. I think it's a lovely place. It just needs to be activated. That's the second thing. So you have to activate it and placemake it. Some of the recommendations we came up with in our letter that's dated January 11th, there's 8 recommendations. I'll just read them in case people in the audience don't have the letter. Let's have the city staff take a lead now with county and state agencies that own infrastructure to repair, maintain roads, curbs, the bridge, I think it's called the 9th Street Bridge, and street lighting on the bridge and in the neighborhoods. City staff should aggressively lead their counterparts in other agencies to find and fix infrastructure problems. So obviously that's going to be coordination between Public Works here, the county's transportation folks, and maybe someone in state highway. Number 2, provide budget funding in FY 2024 for city staff person to coordinate the 13+ stakeholders groups and the various district designation applications necessary for revitalization success. Attached to your package, you see there's a Main Street Maryland program, arts and entertainment district guidelines, and finally, I think Bowie's already set this up, which is nice, the Bowie facade matching grant that was done in June of 2002. Number 3, continue budget funding to support an annual festival. The annual festival, I think, was in October, and it was canceled due to bad weather. That was a shame. Continue budget funding to support robust concert programming to create a second farmers market on the same day as a concert programming. This one, in my mind, for my own reasons, I think this is probably one of the most important things you can do. I don't think it costs much money, if money at all. There is a farmer's market over by the Performing Arts Center. There's no reason you couldn't have one that sort of pushed over towards Old Town Bowie on a Saturday, for example. So what we did learn when we went through Kensington, they had the MARC train station. Right in the parking lot of that area, they had the farmer's market. And I think for years it was just plodding along, but what kind of seemed to get it gelled and activated was across the street, a very narrow, just a 2-lane street. They had sort of a little mini park, and in that park they had musicians. And so the Historical Society, for instance, they sponsored the arts in the park. So what you had was people coming in the morning, they'd mill about the farmer's market, and when I say farmer's market, that includes candles and people selling things, tie-dyed shirts, all the way to fruits and vegetables. It's not farmer's market per se where there's nothing but produce, it's not like that. But to have the two together, that sort of creates this sense of place, and it does create a bit of activity. And once you have the activity, I think what we had learned was it was an organic thing. You just can't like light a lightning bolt and say, okay, thou shall have businesses here. It sort of kind of just organically grew, and then somebody decided to take a flyer on a little coffee shop. And next to that, the one guy looks and says, well, there's 300 or 400 people here every Saturday morning. Maybe I'll open a barber shop. And then it just started to grow like that. What I find most interesting about it personally is it's not a lot of, like I said, not a lot of city funding necessary. I think that's the key, is you don't always have to throw money at it. Let's see, create budget funding to support, I just went through that. Actively pursue Main Street Maryland designation with an action plan draft ready by September of 2023. Actively pursue art and entertainment district designation with an action plan ready for September 23 also. Provide budget funding FY24 for commercial building facade program, which is attached in the back. And I also think this is very important in corporate world where I work. You got to schedule biannual briefings from staff and community leaders on the actions and what's actionable and collection of data. It's one thing to say we're going to do this, but I think, like I'm sure where Mayor Adams works or where I work, I have to show up every Thursday morning at a board meeting and tell them what I did last week. So I think that's good. I mean, it makes people accountable for what they're doing, and you see where you can see and track progress. Again, this is a discussion. By any means, this is not a quick thing. I think it's going to take a long time. I don't know how many times the city's ever got into trying to do something. I would assume one of the very first things to do is maybe you do ascribe a little bit of money and hire someone that is that responsible person in Bowie, maybe staff, and say, your job is to put together a business plan. We want to see what your plan is, how you're going to do it, what your actions will be, and track those actions. I get the sense talking with the community, and we did have them in, and you know, as partners and sort of co-hosts of our meetings, people are frustrated. It does seem to be just kind of a place that time forgot. There's no reason it should be. There's a nice little park there. I think, like I said, you have the structures there to begin it, and you know, hopefully the council and Mr. Estev, this is, I think, in your district, and we're here to help, or as much help as you want, or as little, or a sounding board, or just give us a call. But you know, you do have a great bunch of citizens there, and I can really tell that they're motivated. So it's more of a discussion, right? It's just a starting point. And here's, I'll leave this with the council. I'll pass over to Mike. It's just the stuff that I get. I think these come out weekly, and then this is sort of monthly. It just shows how they, I mean, I think this is pennies on the dollar to send this stuff out. It goes to all the residents. And so maybe if you're able to do something like that digitally or in a hard print form, at least you're telling people what's going on down there. Yeah.
I think I'd like to comment if I could. Are you about to finish up?
I'm done.
Okay, I would like to say to the residents of Old Bowie, you know,
Thanks, Dad.
that's to make sure you understand how important what I say is. It has such weight, it blows the lights out, okay? I just wanted to say how important Old Town Bowie is to all of us, to the city as a whole. As you know, we've been talking about what we're going to do down there, what we've been trying to do. Mr. Rowd has done a good job, and others of taking us to other places, council members and others, and seeing what it could be and what we could do there. I know when we were talking about the Arts Festival down there, and I think many can attest, I had a great time with my family down there. You know, last year, again, because of weather, it was, but it's something that I think we all recognize is a true asset to the city of Bowie. And I look forward to us doing everything we can to make sure that we enhance that we move forward that. Some of the plans that we even as a council talked about, COVID kind of put us behind the 8 ball on. But I look forward to us truly moving forward and making sure that we take those steps to make sure that Old Town Bowie can be that place that we all want it to be. And that we really move forward in doing what we can as a council to enhance those things in this letter. I think all of those are reasonable requests and items. So again, thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for that, and we look forward to making things happen in Old Town Bowie. Thank you. And I'll turn it over. Any questions or anything from council? Councilman of staff, would you like to?
Yeah, thanks, Mr.
I'll go ahead. What's your district? I'll go and then I'll go and then let you go. Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Gardner.
Thank you, Councilmember Steph.
I really appreciate the EDC's work on this. I know a lot of the folks in this room, we've been on speed dial for quite a long time about Old Bowie-related issues. Mr. Rowd or Ms. Muckle, do you have any suggestions? So in Kensington, one of the things that I noticed is that the vast majority of the stuff that's going on is organized either by private businesses or by volunteer groups. You know, what do you recommend? This is very heavy on give John Henry more people to do things, which is fine. I'm happy to give John Henry more people to do things, and later on staff will explain to me in a couple months why we can't afford to do that, and that's okay. But what should we be delineating between what's volunteer-led and what should be city-led? What's the best way for us to kind of make that delineation?
I mean, that's a hard question because I'm just not familiar with the volunteer aspect of the city, of Bowie. I know talking to Mayor Tracy and Connor back in the day when they started it, they weren't the first to get it going. I do think the city was a little bit involved with, especially with the sort of the data collection of getting all the addresses of the people there and then saying, and you know, putting together a thing that says, hey, this Saturday there's the market and this is, and that's that. Does that cost much money? I don't know if they did it with a consultant. I don't think sort of that, I mean, people here must, I don't know how that works. That's not my world, but I don't think from when talking to the city, it's very expensive at all. So I don't know what service groups are here in the city, but maybe they could start up. I mean, talking with Mr. Green, I mean, he seems to know that neighborhood very, very well. Maybe that's the start. Maybe you just have some civic folks over there work with you and collect the addresses. Whether you, now, there are significant differences in the size. You know, you're 58,000, Kensington's too. But, you know, you've got to start somewhere, and that's what I'm trying to say. You're not calling it an airstrike here. You're just starting with something on the ground, and it just starts to move. The question is, it's got to start to move. I think that's the point.
No, I understand. I appreciate that. No, I get that. A lot of these things on here, as Mr. Round pointed out, are things that we're already beginning to work on. One of the things that I'm excited about in this year's budget is, you know, the city does a lot of big annual events, including the Old Town Festival event, which we restarted last year. This year, we're going to start talking about beefing up Matt Corley's office a little bit and giving him the support to organize regular, smaller scale events throughout the city so that we're just activating a lot of the small unused spaces that we currently aren't really activating, whether that's pop-up food trucks or small musical events. And Old Bowie is one of the places where we'd like to try and get more of those kind of regular things going. The city is huge. I don't think Old Bowie is, in my district is a core to the city, and Old Bowie is less than 10% of my district. So when we talk about small pop-up events throughout the city, we could do 200 and still not hit all the small areas in Bowie where we could organize such a thing. But keeping Old Bowie in the rotation for those sorts of events is definitely something we can work on. I'm excited for these. Staff, what's the best way for us to go about making these, you know, budget objectives moving forward? Is this something we can talk about when economic development comes up in our upcoming budget hearings?
Well, yes, we can talk about it then. Not sure what the numbers are going to look like this year and how much we can do. I can say that we'll certainly be in my proposed budget will be the money for the festival in the fall, and possibly some money to utilize contractors or to support Matt Corley and beef up his office, as you mentioned. But that's about all I can promise right now.
No, I understand. I see the frown on the city finance director's face getting stronger.
Yeah.
So no, I get it. We'll talk about budget in due time. One of the perennial issues we've had, Senator Peters, Delegate Geraldine Valentino, Councilmember Turner, and I beat our heads against a wall for a long time because one of the big challenges we have in Old Bowie is the vast majority of the infrastructure is controlled by other entities, mostly state highway, some of it the county. We have a whole panoply of new elected leaders at the state and county level who I know are going to be interested in this, and I would just ask residents that we continue to work together to include our new state and county officials in making sure you know, that they're aware of these challenges as well, because almost all the major streets we talk about in Old Bowie are state-run. That bridge is state-run, and we can't get state highway to frickin' expand 197. That's been a 30-year project. So moving a bridge, I can imagine would take them a little while as well, and it already has. So this is just something that we're going to have to keep working together on to make sure we're polite and persistent with our higher electeds to make sure they're aware of these things. Other than that, I really appreciate the presentation. I really appreciate your time, Mr. Roud. I know you don't have a lot of it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And one thing I forgot, when I was talking to the folks in Kensington, they did say their grants person did find like Project Open Space monies, and there's various grants. That's something maybe whoever does that at the city could look into. But again, it's just simple things. I don't know how it works, so forgive me if I'm saying it, but you know, something like saying, you know, we need the farmer's market to move to Old Town Bowie on a Saturday morning. I mean, I don't think you're paying for that, right? It's free. And then we just have to figure out, okay, now how do you get some type of entertainment or something to see other than that right across the street? So that's the key. I don't know how you do that.
Oh, no, and I really appreciate the suggestions. I think in terms of activating the space, you're absolutely correct. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit stuff we can do. As far as things like repairing sidewalks and street cleaning, that's always a call with a county or state agency, and more specifically 20 calls with a county or state agency. So as far as like that kind of maintenance stuff, it's in a somewhat different category. But I totally agree with you. I think the suggestions about the low-hanging fruit for space activation is great and definitely something that we're going to work on.
Okay.
I don't have anything else, Mr. Mayor. Oh, except for I do want to say a big thank you to the Old Bowie residents who came out. I see a lot of faces, folks who've been working incredibly hard with the Arts and Entertainment District, who were out there with Dustin Kuzan when he first had the idea, at Old Town Grill about getting the arts and entertainment application process started. I see folks from Huntington Heritage Society who've been around forever. We got that 10th Street Park done after 15 years of stakeholders meeting. Finally got accomplished a couple of years ago. And I know we're working on a couple more projects. And so I just want to say thank you all for your advocacy over the years, because it really has made a difference in getting some things accomplished. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Gardner, you said no. All right. Well, thank you so very much for that. We will now move on to the auditor's presentation of the City of Bowie's fiscal year 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. And again, thank you to all the residents of Old Town Bowie for being here and being with us this evening.
Good night, Ingrid.
Good night, and please be safe. Thank you so much.
Your phone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
All right, Mr.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is H. Byron Matthews, Finance Director for the City of Bowie. Thank you for the opportunity for the finance staff to have their external auditors here to give you the financial report for the City of Bowie for 2022. I have my colleague, my esteemed colleague, and Assistant Finance Director, Lola Ogunremi, who will introduce.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Byron. Good evening, everyone. I would like to introduce the auditor, Ms. Iris Coleman, who is the Director of State and Local Government with Clifton Larson Allen LLP, also known as CLA. Ms. Coleman will be presenting the results of the fiscal year 2022 audit, and I'll have a start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, good evening, Council. Everyone who remained, so just bring our auditor in, you clear the room.
You have a number of people watching from home.
That's okay. I thank you very much for your time and allowing me to present today. As mentioned, I am presenting the financial results for the City of Bowie fiscal year 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. And I'm going to say ACFA from now on, it's just easier. So the city is required to have an annual report done by an independent auditor, which is my firm, CLA, and we issue an opinion on the financial statements. So before I get into our agenda, just what we're doing, we're going to look at here, I want to take time to thank Byron and Lola for everything. When you guys got a copy of the ACFA, it's 116 pages. It's a lot of information there. It's a lot of summarization. It's budget information put into 116 pages, and my firm is responsible for 3 of those pages, actually 4. Used to be 2, went to 3, now it's 4 pages. That's all we have. So when I am going through my presentation, remember that thank you to your finance team, because out of the 4 pages, all the information is theirs. I just make sure it's in accordance with auditing standards. So I'm gonna take a little bit of time to talk about our audit approach, the results, and then some required communications I must make as part of the auditing process. Okay, so when you do an audit, everyone asks that word audit, and sometimes it strikes fear in a person's heart. But for audit that I do, we really do is more based on risk. It's based on assessment of controls, some industry statistics. We talk to various individuals throughout the city, and we really get an idea of what's going on, where's the risk. Where's the risk that something can be materially misstated? Where's the risk that there could be irregularities? And from that, we build out the areas that we're going to focus on. So when you look at the opinion, and it says that we have audited, we give reasonable assurance. We cannot and are unable to audit 100% of everything that goes through the city. So therefore, you do sampling. And again, like as I mentioned, it's based on risk assessment. So the opinion is unmodified. It's a clean opinion. And what that means is that that's the highest level of assurance on the financial statements that the auditors are able to give. When you look at the opinion this year, as I mentioned, now it's 4 pages. There's some new language that's added in. It's part of auditing standards. It does not, some of it talks about internal audit, some things that we give insurance on, but that's part of a new standard, and he's adding more and more language. What it seems like they're trying to kind of absolve the auditors of anything that could come up, so they add more and more language to the opinion, and eventually it'll probably be longer than the statements, but you'll see that, and just want to make sure you know that does not represent anything or any issues with the city. It's just auditing standards. A new standard that the city had to implement this year was GASB 87 leases, and that was a big undertaking. If any of you are in the financial world, leases has been trying to be implemented for at least maybe 4 or 5 years, and then it was also set back because of COVID, and now it's finally here. And what the leases does is, before you had operating leases, if you had a landlord or you were renting equipment, or you were actually the landlord and receiving money for rent, that's no longer an actual, that's no longer an accounting thing. Now all your leases are capitalized. They're all going to be an asset or some type of receivable. So before it was just, I receive money and I have property. Now you're going to see an asset for items that you are paying to lease, and for like the town center where you are renting out space, you're going to see a receivable, and that money is going to be recognized over time. That was a big undertaking for your finance team and for all my clients, because of a new way to look at a lot of the activity that normally was not put on the financial books in this particular manner. And again, I want to say I give kudos to Byron and Lola, because it takes a lot. It was a lot to actually gather the information, work with a third party, and then get it presented in a format for the financial statements. The city goes for the GFOA certificate, which is an industry-level certification over the financial statements. And similar to my opinion, but not as heavily valued as my opinion, it is certificate saying that they have met all of the auditing and financial reporting requirements, which is the highest level they can get for their financial reporting in a government and for a government entity. All right, so the audit results. We talked about the opinion. There are other letters that we are issuing as part of this, the financial audit. Excuse me. One is a report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance matters, and that's because audit we do is in accordance with government auditing standards, and that means we must assess. We do not give an opinion on internal controls, but we assess the controls related to financial reporting, and we want to make sure we can rely on those controls. If you don't have good controls, it's likelihood that your numbers might not be reliable. So we do look at that information and we determine if it's reliable. And we give a measurement. There are no issues or a significant deficiency or material weakness. We have no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, which means that the internal controls or financial reporting were reasonably presented, and that we can rely on them for the financial audit. The next part, before I go into communications, is a single audit. The city, because of the CARES money for fiscal year 21, and then you have the ARP money or the SLURF money. It's like 1,000 different acronyms for these days. But you have that money, the recovery money was also spent for fiscal year 22. Well, that threw the city over the reporting threshold for federal expenditures, and you're required to have a single audit. That audit right now is actually just went from my review into our QC review, and we're planning to issue it by the end of this month. Right now, there are no findings, issues, or anything I must present to the council as part of my reporting. All right, so required communications. Some of these things I already spoke about, but I must say them as part of this piece here, so forgive me for being redundant. But our financial audit of the finance is done in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and also government auditing standards. Note 1 of the 116 pages, when you get to the notes, Note 1 tells you about the significant accounting principles and policies that are used in creating the financial statements. You will see new notes in there this year related to the leases that we spoke about earlier. In the preparation of the financial statements, there are some numbers that are estimates, which means there are assumptions around it as to what the value should be, but there's no hard, fast, clear-cut way to determine what that value is. And one is depreciable lives of an asset. There's work done to assume how long an asset will last, but no one really knows. So we call that an estimate. And then the biggest estimate is going to be your pension and your OPEB liability, which are done based on actuary assumptions. And again, that is a huge estimate because it is actuary assumptions that they take into consideration, and they come up with a number and they say, here's your liability the next 20 years, this is what you more likely will be paying for this particular event. So when we were looking at the financial statements, there was no sensitive information that was disclosed. We did not encounter any difficulties in performing the audit. We did not have any disagreements with management. Management did sign representation for the financial statements, and the representation is stating that all the information provided to us was true, accurate to the best of their knowledge, and nothing has changed since the end of the fiscal year to the opinion date of the audit. Management did not make any consultations with other auditors besides us. We did not have any significant discussions with management as part of our audit process where management saying, if we continue to hire you as our auditor, we need you to come up with this favorable outcome. We did not have such conversations. Our conversations were normal client relationships that we have. We did not have any significant issues or findings, as I mentioned earlier. We also do not have a management letter. A management letter is more so best practices. It's not in the regard of anything significant or material, but there are some things that we need to just have out there for management attention, kind of getting their peer review, because it may later come up to be a significant item. We did not have any uncorrected or corrected misstatements presented to management. And lastly, the information that contained in the financial statements, you have required supplemental information, you have supplement information, you have statistical tables, and there are some parts of those 116 pages that I mentioned before that we are not required to give an opinion on. We look at the information and make sure it coincides with the financial statements. Our opinion does not cover that, and we are required to communicate that to you. All right, that was a mouthful, but I thank you so much for allowing me to present today, and I'll open up for any questions.
Council, any questions? Go ahead, Councilman Dufour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. You blew through it, and I'm not sure which I heard. Did you say there was or was not a management letter?
There was not this year.
No.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So that's encouraging. I would have thought, usually there's something that falls into that category of you may also like in terms of improvements. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
The other question I have for you, in general. I looked through this. I didn't see anything that makes me, lose sleep or, toss and turn. So I was really pleased with that. How much, if any, attention did you put on IT systems and software applications that are used for our financial books?
Well, we actually do. We're looking more so at the financial system. So you guys have a lot of systems because you do different activities, but we're looking at that interface and what goes into the financial records. For the financial system, you guys use a system that's hosted by Tyler. So it's like a cloud-based system. So we do, we get a SOC report. Tyler is heavily used by a lot of my clients. So we do get a SOC report over their systems. We also do some work here where we're looking at user access, make sure it's correct, make sure that persons are being added and deleted properly and timely of their entrance and exit from the city. We also look at when the last time you're doing your upgrades and your patches and things of that nature, that connection is coming in with Tyler. So we have to do that because, as again, there's not the days when you have a pencil, everything is financial. So in order for us to even have an audit that we can rely on, part of that internal control process, we have to look at the financial system. Yeah.
And from a auditing standpoint, did you do any audits of transactions coming from revenue sources through and follow them through to the books?
Yes, we do confirmations. We also do where the county has, especially like your biggest revenues, your taxes, excuse me, your real and your personal property taxes. So we do actually confirm that information with the county, and then we bring it back to your books to see what was recorded on your financial books based on their, the county's recollection of what they gave you as far as property taxes. And if there's, not saying there was, but usually when confirmation process or when you're doing that tracing, if there are any discrepancies that are material, we have to make sure we clear that up before we can move forward, because again, that is a material item to the financials.
Did you do any work around conflicts of interest with internal controls? That is to say, someone on the procurement side, having too much control or too much latitude in terms of contracts or awards or cash going?
So I'm going to answer that kind of too, because we do conflict of interest, but it's more so we actually get something from various department heads and also from the council and the mayor, basically saying that you sign that you do not have any conflicts, and if you did, you note that out and we look at that relationship. So we're assuming that's what we're relying on for the procurement piece. To actually go into a deeper dive, that's kind of at our purview, because that's nothing that's will come up in the normal part of our audit. If we wanted to do something where you look at the procurement and relationships, that is a separate type of engagement and not just the main engagement for the audit. But we do look at the conflict of interest just at a high level to make sure there are none. If someone was presented to us as part of that process, as part of the audit, we will have to look at is it at arm's length? Is there an agreement that's proper that any normal person would have? We would trace transactions and so of that nature if one was disclosed to us.
Thank you. And cash transactions, did you look at any cash transactions? I know it's a smaller and smaller piece, but it is a opportunity for risk.
We do. We look at it. I don't know if it's exactly maybe I'm not sure what level you're saying, but we do look at the bank reconciliation. We do look at some of the cash receipts that are coming in to make sure that they have deposits and they are actually being recorded. But again, as I mentioned, it's a sample base and kind of give you an idea. Depending on the risk, we can, no matter how much cash you're collecting, we may pick a sample of 60. That 60 may be fine. We can't say there's no fraud. We just say that 60 we picked, we're fine. So although we're looking at that, if there's a particular issue, we just ask for it to come to us because we may not pick that one transaction or be knowledgeable about that.
Thank you very much. I do greatly appreciate the insights you provided us and the wealth of information that you assembled in concert with the team, and do appreciate the due diligence that you have executed for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, what I'd like to ask you one more time, and just to kind of sum it up. First and foremost, I again want the council, but also the citizens to understand that we had, from what you can see as an auditor, from the areas you can check, we have a clean bill of health.
You're correct.
Correct.
Yes.
And secondly, is there anything that you see in the accounting world coming down that we might need to be prepared for it or be looking for? Any new standards or anything coming that we may need to see?
Oh, yes. So you had lease standards this year, and next year you have a similar one, but it's on subscriptions. So Tyler, where you guys are hosting, that will now be capitalized and placed on your financial records. So Lola and Byron are working on that, but that's one of the ones. And then there are some that are being proposed. Probably one of the biggest ones that's coming down is actually changing the whole financial reporting structure, which again is a big undertaking. But I think right now, it's little by little, it's the one is subscriptions, which is going to be capitalizing. And when you look at that, although it's not on your fund level, so when you guys are doing your budgets, you wouldn't see it. But when you look at the entity-wide, your net position, where your pension and stuff, see, your relationship with Tyler could be, and I'm just going to throw it out, there could be a 15-year contract. That whole number now is going to be capitalized and placed on your financial records. So when you see sometimes in that position, that number gets, smaller and smaller. It's based with a lot of, again, we talk about estimates. Right. Going forward. So that's one of the things. It's just another number that's coming on, but it's a big undertaking to do that. And then, like I said, there are other, Gatsby's has been really busy. They've been quiet for the last couple of years, and they've been really busy. And the next one that we are, as auditors, are kind of looking at is the one where they're looking at changing the whole structure of the financial reporting, which was last done when they implemented Gatsby 34, and you actually had to have those 2 extra statements. Right. That no one really looks at, but it's more so for the financial world when you guys are going outside the government. So that's the next one we're looking to see, because it's kind of going back and forth. But again, Gatsby is not looking at the time that it takes someone to implement this. They're looking at what they want to see. So,
yeah. I understand that, and I'm sure Byron's going to make sure that we do everything we need to do with that. Isn't that correct, Byron? Correct, man. Hey, again, I know you've done this. Thank you so very much. I know it's a challenge, making sure, because you put your reputation and your organization on the line and making sure. So that's why I wanted to make sure people understand how important this is, that we have that audit and that we have a clean bill of health.
You are correct. And you also, right. Yes, you are
hey,
correct.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Okay. Byron, again, thank you, and team. Thank you, sir. All right, at this time, we will now move to the adoption of Resolution R-123, adopting the Citizen Participation Plan, the CPP, for the Consolidated Plan for Housing and Community Development for fiscal years 2024 through 2028. City staff?
Good evening. My name is Kay Starr. I am the grant writer for the City of Bowie, and I work in the Office of Grant Development and Administration, or OGDA. I'm going to present tonight about the consolidated planning process for a community development block grant program and the citizen participation plan. Oh, I did not know that it had special information. Okay. So the consolidated planning process is a process that we undertake every 5 years as a CDBG community. The CDBG grants come to us from HUD, the Federal Agency on Housing and Urban Development. The purpose of this program is to provide communities with resources to address a wide range of community development needs, and the grants are made on an annual basis based on a formula over 5 years. We are now at the end of one 5-year cycle of our CDBG program, so we will be starting the consolidated planning process to create a plan for the next 5 years of the program. The goals of the CDBG program, as developed by HUD, are to develop viable urban communities, provide decent housing, expand economic opportunities, and address at least one of the national objectives, benefiting low or moderate income persons, eliminating slums and blight, and fulfilling an urgent need. The City of Bowie has been an entitlement community. That is to say, we have received CDBG funds since fiscal year 2003. These projects must follow the CDBG program's goals and objectives, and at least 70% of the funding must address the needs specifically of low and moderate income persons. Over the course of our CDBG program, the City of Bowie has used funds for a variety of purposes. We have conducted infrastructure reconstructions and improvements for the redevelopment of Old Town Bowie. We have also used funds for energy efficient related rehab and energy audits of residents' homes. This program started as a pilot program for senior housing and then was able to be expanded into a program for all residents of the city of Bowie. I have here over 200. The actual number is larger than that, it's about 315, but not all of those improvements were funded exclusively with CDBG money. We have in the past been able to leverage other funding, including community legacy funding from the state of Maryland, to also fund some of our housing rehabilitation. So the program itself has had a larger impact than that, but this is specifically talking about the CDBG funding. And that program has been going since 2010. As I said, it started as a senior rehabilitation program and is now expanded to all residents who meet the income requirements. We've also used our CDBG funding to create and implement a workforce training program, which I'm the program coordinator of, that we offer every spring to Bowie residents aged 15 to 25, where we present them with different career opportunities, emphasizing careers in STEM industries, especially industries active here in the county and in the state, as well as presenting about various life skills that will help them to transition into independent life as adults in the workforce. And we've had over 100 participants in that program since 2018, and I just want to plug that we're currently accepting applications, so if you know of anyone who's interested, please let them know to apply. We have also, as a result of being an entitlement community, we were granted funds through the CARES Act for COVID relief here in the city of Bowie. We used those funds for a variety of purposes. We had, I think, 3 separate grants of funding from HUD to use for CARES Act relief projects. That included the largest portion of those fundings were used for emergency rental assistance for residents who had had their incomes affected by COVID-related issues with their various industries to help them maintain their homes. And we also used some of those funds to provide emergency food assistance also to Bowie residents. We had, all told, I believe 12 events where we provided emergency food assistance to residents over the course of 2020 and 2021. We have also used a portion of our CDBG funds to purchase PPE for our activities here in the city, including homelessness outreach, as well as the emergency food program that I mentioned, and other related activities. So this chart shows the consolidated planning process, how it goes. We gather data from a variety of different data points, including surveying our citizens, hiring a consultant to analyze that data, as well as other information about the city of Bowie from the U.S. Census and other sources. This is all in consultation with staff and with other city departments, so we get feedback from them about the needs that they see in the community, to develop a strategy to make sure that we're addressing the needs of the community based on the guidelines and goals of the CDBG program. The Citizen Participation Plan primary goals are to solicit viewpoints and concerns from the general public, as well as specific groups and constituencies interested in or affected by the consolidated plan, to invite participation by anyone who's interested in helping identify needs and developing strategies to address those needs here in the city of Bowie, and to gather data that accurately describes and quantifies housing and community development needs and suggest workable solutions. Citizen Participation Plan requires that we encourage participation from low and moderate income persons, residents of distressed and blighted areas, minority groups, non-English speaking people, people with disabilities, as well as residents of public housing, which we don't really have here in the city, and residents of targeted revitalization areas, as well as the business community, developers, nonprofit organizations, community organizations, faith-based communities, the Continuum of Care, which is the county organization that provides outreach and services to homeless people, and local and regional institutions. The CPP must describe the process the city will use to allow citizens to review the plan and submit comments. This hearing is part of that process. The summary of the plan was published for review on the city website at the beginning of January, and copies of it were distributed around town, including to rec centers and libraries, and not the Bowie Gym. I think it was just the rec centers and libraries. We have a 30-day comment period. We have not yet received any public comments. And we haven't had any groups approach us asking for funding assistance. The community outreach plan includes that we are holding public meetings. This is one of the public meetings to gain input from citizens as we prepare for the consolidated planning process. We are also developing a needs assessment survey, which will be available online and will also be mailed to 50% of Bowie households to help us identify the priorities, needs, and gather suggestions from Bowie residents. The surveys will also be provided to, again, the nonprofit community, businesses, faith-based communities, homeowners associations, and property management companies in the city. All CDBG documents are available on the city website. The con plan that we are currently operating under, as well as the CAPER, which is our annual report on what we did each year for the CDBG program, and the annual action plan, which is our plan for what we're going to do in the coming year, is all available on the City of Bowie website. The con plan specifically is www.cityofbowie.org/conplan, and it's also promoted in various Bowie communications publications, including the Spotlight and the Bowie Alert. The goals of the needs assessment survey are to, again, assess the community needs, especially in the areas of housing, homelessness, and community development, and to facilitate a collaborative process for local governments, area residents, homeowners associations to provide feedback and input, as well as to create a more effective and coordinated community development strategy based on previous successes in the program and growing community need. So we are currently on the February 6th public meeting. We will be having 3 public meetings in April to present the findings of the consolidated plan and gather more feedback. And then in May, we will have a city council hearing again to approve the consolidated plan for the next 5 years. Additional elements of the consolidated plan include fair housing. I didn't mention at the beginning when I talked about CDBG funded activities, but we also use a portion of those funds. We are obligated to use a portion of those funds to promote fair housing. We do that every April as part of Fair Housing Month. I organize a symposium where I invite, again, the business community, faith leaders, homeowners associations, as well as staff from other municipalities here in the county and staff from the county itself to attend so they can learn about what fair housing is, how to assist residents who have had their fair housing rights violated, and other resources related to fair housing here in the state of Maryland. We also maintain a website that includes all this information that's available at cityofbowie.org/fairhousing. Includes recordings of previous sessions, links to information, data about county-related activities to fair housing, and other information. Over the past 3 years, we've held that event online. This April, we might hold it in person. I don't know. We'll find out. You may have heard of the Biden administration has recently re-implemented an initiative of the Obama administration of affirmatively furthering fair housing, or AFFH. That was recently reinstituted by the Biden administration and is a more stringent standard than what was previously, where the City of Bowie and all entitlement communities who receive this funding are responsible for actively furthering fair housing information for residents, rather than just passively providing that information. As that change gets implemented, we will have more updates regarding that. The city carries out its fair housing responsibilities through, as I mentioned, holding our Fair Housing Symposium in April. We continue to educate city staff about these issues, as well as helping any residents who come to us with fair housing issues to make sure that they know the right organizations to approach and what their rights are. We also participate as part of our outreach in the Homeless Services Partnership for the county, or the HSP. This is also referred to as the Continuum of Care, or COC. This is a group of nonprofit entities and county agencies, including the Department of Social Services and the Department of Housing and Community Development, DSS and DHCD, that meets regularly to discuss housing issues and homelessness issues here in the county and how to best address them, and implementing new projects as that population's needs change and evolve. The Bowie homelessness population is served through a variety of programs, including the Bowie Interfaith Food Pantry, which is located at the Ken Hill Center, as well as the Prince George's County Warm Nights program, as well as Prince George's County Department of Social Services, faith-based communities, and we also occasionally have residents that come to our office in need of assistance with housing, and we address their needs as we are able on a one-off basis. So this is the next steps in the consolidated planning process for the CDBG program, to launch the public survey, which we are currently finalizing, hire a consultant to assist us with composing the plan, and then hold public hearings, as I mentioned, in April until we finalize the plan and submit it for approval in May. The draft con plan will be available for public comment starting in April, Saturday the 7th of April. and it will be available again, same as the citizens participation plan, here at the City Hall, on the city website, and at various locations throughout the city, including libraries and rec centers. Senior center, we will then submit the plan for approval to the council on the May 8th hearing here in City Council chambers, and everything will go smoothly, and you'll approve it, and we'll be done. So these are the contact information for the Office of Grant Development and Administration. Our director is Mr. Jesse Buggs. My colleague George Jones is the grant manager, and I'm the grant writer, and at this point the Citizen Participation Plan Process Coordinator. Any questions?
Yes, a quick question, and this is a very broad question. And thank you for your presentation. That was great. You summed it up well.
Thank you.
Over the years, have we seen any growth in the homeless populations and others compared with the overall city growth? I mean, there's a ratio, I'm sure, that we've seen. Has that ratio changed by any way?
So in terms of hard numbers, I actually have not looked at the most recent point-in-time count. The way that we assess homeless individuals in terms of population here in the United States is a count called the point-in-time count, or PIT count, that's done every January that's under the auspices of HUD, and HUD issues guidance on how to do that, and every community in the country does that. Through the COVID period, that process was somewhat disrupted, and it is now becoming more normalized. So the point-in-time count numbers for the past 3 years are quantifiably different, because they were, usually a point-in-time count is we physically go out into places where we know that homeless people are in encampments, we count everyone in shelters, and because of COVID restrictions, not as many people were able to go out directly and directly assess people and count people that way. So those numbers are not the same as numbers prior to the pandemic. I will say anecdotally, we have had an increase in inquiries from residents, both residents who are facing homelessness or having issues with their housing stability, as well as residents who are having concerns related to people camping near where they live, or occasionally some of the apartment buildings have had some issues with folks who have been let in and sleep in the laundry room and that kind of activity. I can't put any percentage number on the pre-pandemic era versus now, but I will say that as an office, we've had more of those kind of inquiries coming through. And as a county, I know that that is also increasing.
Okay. Look forward to, as you go through your process and post. The pandemic is still here, but post the large numbers we were facing with, I look forward to seeing what those numbers are looking like. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other council questions? Hearing none, thank you again so very much. At this time, I will open the public hearing. Is there any speakers?
No, Mayor, there's no one signed up tonight and no comments were received.
Okay. I will then declare the public hearing closed. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to entertain a motion, move to adoption of Resolution R1-23, adoption of Citizen Participation Plan, CPP, for consolidation plan for housing and community development for the fiscal years 2024 through 2028, HUD FY 23-27.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Again, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
At this time, we will now move to the police department update. The police chief will brief council on the status of various matters in the police department. And thank you to all of our men and women who support and serve our great city. And thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. I am going to focus on the word you said, which was brief. You've got a huge packet of information, so I'm going to try to hit the highlights, and we can double back and talk about things as council sees fit. First and foremost, always on our mind is staffing. We all know that recruitment is at an all-time difficulty level. We do currently have 10 openings. We have 2 that are getting ready to graduate the academy tomorrow, which will help. But again, that doesn't affect the opening status as they're counted into the numbers. And we'll touch a little bit more on that as we look in the strategic plan. Some of our current outreach efforts, we do have a Citizens Academy coming up on April 4th. We still have openings, so if you're interested in attending that, please see the website and sign up. It is a very useful and informative class. It covers a lot of different things, and unfortunately, there's a lot more to cover now after Memphis and the debacle that was down there, that tragedy. So we need to make sure that we're in constant contact with our residents and that we're making sure that they know who we are and what we stand for. We did pick up our RAD women's self-defense classes again. They're starting Monday and Wednesday nights. Next week, the Monday's filled up in less than 24 hours, so we still have, I think, maybe a couple slots in the Wednesday class, and you can contact Ms. Boswell to register for that. We continue with the camera rebate program for the doorbell cameras, which is a $50 rebate as long as the camera is new, installed in the city, and pointed outward and not inward. And towards the end, we'll talk about our strategic plan. But we're going to kind of move through the packet here. And unfortunately, when we start to look at our numbers, we are not immune to the national, local trends of incidents rising and some rising crime levels. We did manage to go down in residential burglaries, but with the ring of folks on the commercial side, we did get hit for 25 this year out of those. Our assault reports went up, unfortunately. Auto thefts really went up, and a lot of it is driven by the TikTok challenges and a lot of things we've seen publicly about the Kias and Hyundais and some of the steps that State's Attorney Bowie is taking to try to prosecute those at a higher level. Auto theft, we just talked about that. Robberies, we just went up a hair, but a hair is too many. Theft reports went up, not driven by theft from auto. Our theft from autos actually went down in 2022. The increase in theft is due mainly to shoplifting. We've seen an increase in shoplifting around the area, and we are looking at a couple strategies to try to make some moves against that as well. You'll notice that moving violations have dropped tremendously as well. That was actually a predetermined move. As staffing levels got low, we had to concentrate on chasing the calls and making sure that our base service of taking calls for service was handled. So we kind of dropped off on the proactive traffic enforcement. We're looking to pick that back up as well. But there was a period in 2022 where we had to kind of push that aside and handle our base services. Moving to criminal investigations, you'll see the stats there. A couple of the different cases that we handled and closed out successfully: the first-degree assault, 2 first-degree assaults, and a third-degree sex offense. The details are in there. If you look at our community services unit for the 2022 overview, you'll notice on that first page the number of times that the SRO needed coverage and that the community services team was tasked to backfill patrol. One of the things that does not stop, no matter what our staffing is training. And so when we have squads and in-service or firearms, we have to make sure that we cover the streets, and we try to do that fiscally responsibly by backfilling with our community services team. So you'll see that as much as the front page as they're covering the SROs or they're covering the squad coverage, they still manage to do quite a few events, almost a page and a half of events that they've done. And again, they do an outstanding job of balancing the needs of the road and making sure that we continue our high level of community outreach. If you look at our traffic safety overview for 2022. You'll see that you mentioned Route 197 earlier. That continues to be an issue with us as well. 18.4% of the crashes in the city were on 197. So as soon as the state gets that squared away, we will be happy as well. On the second page, we had a number of fatal crashes have increased by 500% compared to 2021. Once the COVID kind of started to recede, everybody got back on the roads, we've definitely seen an increase in fatalities, and most of those can be attributed to speed. While we talk about speed, I will let you know where our speed cameras are for residential. The bidding process is open on eMarket, and it is set to close on February 10th. So we hope to have a fast, efficient review of the bids and make our best selection and try to get that on track as soon as we can. Looking at our training section, I had said that a lot of things can be shifted and changed. Training is not one of them. Our training department is a department of 2. They do a fantastic job conducting over 1,900 hours of training this year for the officers. Included those trainings are use of force reviews, which included 10 hours of those. And just to educate you a little bit, anytime we have a use of force training, looks at it stem to stern to make sure that we are in policy and that there are no training issues that we need to address on the front end. So that concludes the packet of information. Again, I kind of cruised along the top of it because there is a lot of information. It seems like every year we get a little more detailed in our information, which is a good thing, but it can eat a lot of time up if I go word by word for it. So I will stop there and we'll take any questions you might have about the report, and then we can move on to the strategic plan.
First, I'd like to say thank you, Chief, and to the staff. I know sometimes it probably feels like we're constantly asking you to do more with less and wanting you to do everything with nothing, but we're going to make sure we avoid that. And I think one of the things that we need to understand is even with the numbers we're seeing here in the city of Bowie, we know that there are national trends that are happening with a lot of it. And a lot of it isn't just particular to Bowie, nor is it particularly Bowie residents, but others coming from outside in. So I think the residents need to take that, and I'm doing just a public service announcement, so to speak, for you, Chief, here, and that is you have attempted to communicate to us, the citizens of Bowie, what we can do to help. You've talked about what steps we need to take from our cars to other things. You've tried to talk about what's going on with TikTok and all of those other things. So I commend you on that. I know that with not only yourselves, but with the city manager, we're looking at what we can do to help with recruitment and retention for the police force. And we understand, again, that we're down in numbers. So I say to everyone, it's a community challenge for all of us. It's not just if you see something, say something. It's about making sure you do those things that can prevent someone from wanting to make you a victim. And so having said that and looking at the numbers and where we're going with this, I'd like to just ask you a very, very broad question. And that being, if there was one or two takeaways that we as citizens should get not only from this, but in general, that you'd like to share with us right now, what would that be?
Again, a lot of the thefts are preventable. They're crimes of opportunity. So the biggest thing that I would like someone to take away is we need to work together. We can do the enforcement side, we can do the patrol side, but we've got to limit the opportunities. We've had a couple of people that we've arrested and interviewed after thefts from auto, and they've come right out and said, Bowie has good stuff and they don't lock their cars. So when we have a reputation for that, we need to make sure that we try to change that cycle And we try to communicate that as much as we possibly can. We're working with Una Cooper to maybe utilize Alert Bowie a little more proactively, not just in crisis, but in general police information as well. So we are trying to find a way to connect when there are so many different channels and means to communicate with people. It's hard to catch everybody on every level. So we will continue to work with that, but if you ask the one takeaway, it's help us help you.
Okay, and Chief, we know that the budget cycle is coming up, and know that we're committed to our protection of our citizens and to our police force and our first responders in general. So thank you for all you do. Any other comments or questions from Councilman to staff?
Just wanted to thank the whole team for being out here tonight. I know you guys have a lot on your plate right now. A town Bowie size, typically in the United States, would have probably 110 cops. We have a self-imposed limit of 65, and it sounds like we're down to 55 right now. So, you know, when you look at the towns near us, you know, Frederick's got, I think, like 80,000 residents, but they have 140 cops. Greenbelt for a long time was basically a police department with the town attached to it. You know, we've been fortunate as kind of a quiet suburban community that we've never thought of ourselves as a place that needs a larger department. But, you know, as the city has grown, as the area around us has grown, as Bowie sadly continues to remain a target for a lot of crime from outside groups, you know, we really have to take seriously the reality we're facing and the numbers that we have. Real quick, on 197, do you guys have any information from State Highway on those flags that they've erected and keep having to re-erect because people knock them out? Do you have any data whatsoever on whether that's having an impact on 197 and speeding?
I don't have any data, hard data on it at this point. I can say that we were in a meeting with State Highway, and they're going through the same consternations that we are. It was amazing when they first put them up. You know, maybe if you remember as a little kid, you put the playing cards in your spokes. That's what it sounded like on 197 as people just mowed those things over. And the feeling I got was at a meeting was they're not going to replace them as they start to get beat up. So they're rethinking some strategies, and I know they have a plan and they're working the plan, and I'm going to try to stay positive that it's going to be all right in the end.
Well, we have a new governor and some new lawmakers who made some very big promises about all the wonderful changes that's going to be used with our state surplus. So maybe 197 will actually get improved rather than talked about for the next 30 years. As far as recruitment, what do you need from us on the recruitment front? I mean, obviously more money in national recruiting, but I understand that there's some discussions about a strategy in the works to kind of change how we're approaching that a little bit. Unless you've discovered how to single-handedly change the global climate around blue-collar work generally and policing specifically.
Not yet. I'm still working on that piece. Stephen Haley and I have been working at the behest of the city manager to come up with a hardened strategy for recruiting. We need to be quicker and more agile in the process without skipping quality. And that's the real trick is, you know, how do we get this done in the most expedient way possible, but not miss any steps and not miss any background issues that might be lurking. And one of the most important things we have is the background investigation and the timely steps or the detailed steps to make sure that we get good quality people here. We don't want to give up quality for expedience, but we are working on some of those things, and we are formulating some retention strategies that we're not quite ready to unveil yet, but we are still in the process of getting a good work product to the city manager for approval.
You mentioned retention. Other than retaining police chiefs, which I understand is a challenge these days, how do we deal with the competition we're facing from federal agencies right now?
Well, the issue becomes the way it's happening right now, it's not sustainable, right? So, you know, I say I'll give you $5. Well, I'll give you 10, I'll give you 20, and we got some people that are giving $25,000 signing bonuses. And, you know, we can play in that sandbox a little bit, but it's not sustainable. And at the same time, when you start to give signing bonuses that are great, you've got officers here that have, you know, worked short and made sure that basic services are covered, so you need to make sure there's some kind of equity in your retention side. So again, we need to be, we need to be agile. We need to promote who we are and the positive things that we are. And one of the things that we talk about is, I'm going to give you a $25,000 signing bonus. That's amazing. When's the last time you got a raise? What's your community like? What's your benefit package look like? So it's not just a one-time payment thing. You have to look at what your work environment is, how stable is your organization financially, how stable is that city or municipality that you're looking at that's throwing money at you, and are they playing catch up with this money versus where the steady train going down the road with good benefits, good salaries, good raises. And as we start to get out there and recruit, that's what we need the message that we need to put out there is, hey, we're nice and steady, we're solid, we give you good things. We may not have this big quick flash, but that big quick flash gets spent pretty quick, and it's not maybe put into your long-term salary base that helps at retirement. So we're trying to get all that messaging out and looking how we can stay relevant and competitive without, giving away the farm with a flashy one-time, hiring bonus.
Gotcha. So we've got that AAA bond rating, a supportive city council, and a community that'll buy you lunch every now and again.
Exactly.
Without throwing necessarily all of our money at bonuses. All right, I appreciate that. Last one, mobile speed cameras. We got the RFP out. How many cameras are we looking at getting, and what's the manpower necessary to operate them?
Well, the manpower is not the big of an issue. We've got the bid out. Again, it's open on e-market until the 10th. We're not changing the number of the school cameras, which is, I believe, was 14 cans with 8 cameras rotating. And we're adding, I believe, 10 sites? 10 sites of locations with 4 cameras, 5 cameras? How many cameras moving? 4. Another 10 sites with 4 cameras rotating through those 10 sites. So you'll never know if the camera's there until it's too late. And that's going to hopefully drive the speed down. And we're not investing in, 25 cameras. We're doing a reasonable amount of cameras with multiple sites and just rotating them through. And again, that closes on the 10th. We'll work with Ed and do the review, and we'll try to make it as expedited as possible.
I appreciate that. I don't want to keep us here all night, but I just want to say thank you again for everything you guys do. I think every person on this body has been pulled over by one of our own cops while we were in elected office, and I just want to say thank you for doing that. I like living in a town where no one is above the law. I like living in a town where I get yelled at even more by our police department because I should know better and come to a full stop on Chestnut Road in Old Bowie. So I'm just grateful to you guys that you do your jobs and you do it well, and that you're thorough. So thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too thank you. My experience was a burned-out bulb, nonetheless, the bulb was repaired in short order. I had it in the glove box, but didn't matter. A couple of things. First of all, thank you for the ongoing work on the cameras. The February 10. Any thoughts on how long before they're in place?
No, I don't want to put myself into that box. It's going to really depend on how long it takes for us to look at it, and if there's any other negotiating that we need to do to get our needs met at a good price. And then it really depends on how fast people can turn around for signage, building the cameras, building the boxes, and things like that. That may vary from vendor to vendor. Mm-hmm. So we don't really have a solid answer. We're hoping no more than a couple months. Our current contract with Conduit expires this month. So if nothing else, and if we have to, we can always extend that contract by 30 days or whatever, so we don't lose the school cameras until we get the whatever vendor happens to come along or is chosen in place.
Excellent, thank you. Now, one of the things I want to focus on is school cameras. Some of those school cameras are on streets that fall in the category of, under the new authorization that it's under 35 miles. Can we turn those cameras on so that they are 24/7 through those areas?
Have you been talking to Deputy Chief? That was his first question.
Look, you're a good man, sir. I think
it looks like we're going to be able to. We've been talking to the city attorney about it. I don't know if a final resolution has been made yet. The law is not very clear. In fact, I see Ms. Levan's online. Would you like to touch that one?
you're on mute.
Sorry.
That's all right.
No, I would prefer not to do that in open session.
So we are still working on that, looking at guidance.
All right, thank you. As you know, the speed camera is near and dear to my heart. There's a whole swath of the community that's absolutely fed up with traffic the way it is, and I know that our shortage of officers compounds the problem because we're unable to put officers on patrol for that particular responsibility. So thank you for that effort, and I look forward to them as soon as possible. You mentioned the 197 being 18% or 18.4% of accidents. Was that the entire stretch of 197 within Bowie, or is that just my favorite two-lane section?
The report didn't specify, but I'm thinking the concentration is that one little stretch from Ken Hill probably to the other side of just the other side of 450, maybe a little higher.
And also want to follow up with something that touched a little bit earlier, our staffing levels. What is the expected target, the national target for officers per thousand? Is it 2? Is it peggable? Is there something that's a good target?
The Maryland average is 2.84, and that's in the strategic plan that we're going to touch on next.
Thank you. The next thing I want to talk about is you mentioned shoplifting, and this is shoplifting run amok at the CVS at the Bowie Plaza over near the Burger King on 197. They've had a couple of incidents where they broke in the wee hours of the morning, attempted to break into the ATM, and they did so twice. And they've also regaled me with stories of, just brazen, I wouldn't call them customers because they're obviously not customers because they're not paying, but they're thieves, and they just come in with, they will actually steal the trash bag that they will then put all of the stolen merchandise into, and then walk out the door. And it's clear, that there's a number of issues, right? Which is, of course, the impact on the merchant, the propensity for merchants to start to deal with that problem by closing stores or putting up infrastructure that makes it less convenient to shop. The door in that particular store had a board on it for a while now, and they're waiting to get a replacement door. All of that really degrades the quality of life in the community. What can we do, and I know notwithstanding the staffing issues, what can we do to build, and I know there's been some efforts, there have been some officers that have been there at closing time and a few things like that. What kind of programs can we put in place to help strengthen the protections for our merchants in the city? I know it's not just that store. There's certainly issues at other shopping plazas as well. Are there any programs that we can expand upon or do some additional research on?
So the ATM for that particular one matches the MO of a crew that's been working the tri-state area. As far as the shoplifting goes, that goes, I hate to, all roads seem to lead to TikTok and everything else, but there's just, it's a national trend of these brazen shoplifters. Now, there's a Retail Theft Association. For a while, we were doing, we were having meetings with businesses to talk about trends and things like that. We can certainly look at the possibility of picking that back up. I can task Sergeant Gibson to see if we can start to rebuild that. That kind of fell by the wayside probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was a BIN, Business Information Network or something. We can look at reestablishing that. We can do commercial surveys for folks. But a lot of it is, again, very hard to defend against, if they're just grabbing a trash bag, stuffing stuff in and bolting out the door. So, again, one of the things that we're looking at is we're currently talking to Bowie Town Center. Won't help the CVS, but we are talking to the Bowie Town Center about utilizing the old space by where the Zales was as a community information office. I hate the word substation because that infers that it'll be manned on a continuous basis. This will be more of an outreach issue or an outreach place where officers can be every once in a while, and we're going to utilize volunteers from our citizens academies and public safety committees to house that and give information. Bowie Town Center is excited to have us. They're offering to put whatever signage we want so we can turn that into almost a recruiting station where we have information and the QR code to the application. So, kudos to Deputy Chief Preston for putting that together. It could be a good opportunity for us and act as a deterrent for at least Bowie Town Center. So, you've already mentioned a couple things that officers are already doing, being around CVS at closing and trying to be more visible in the area as calls for service allow. But as far as information sharing, we can definitely look into putting that back together, the Business Information Network.
What is the threshold for being a petty shoplifting charge to a higher level charge?
Now it's $1,000.
$1,000, all right. Well, these losses are fall well beyond that. It's remarkable. Well, I appreciate what you can do in pursuing those for us. There is a meaningful problem in the community, and the merchants are going to end up paying for it, which means we're going to end up paying for it, and/or they'll leave and really have a detrimental effect on our community, the shops that are here. So whatever we can do to reach out to this community and bring them into being part of the solution, that would be great. Because I know even in the employees there, they're quite concerned, of course, for their safety. They've also been trained to, stay clear of people who could present a potential risk to them. So they're not trying to get in the way and tackle anybody on the way out the door. And I'm not suggesting that they should, but we have to do something.
I will say that I'm trying to organize with the Bowie Chamber of Commerce. They reached out to me last week. I'm playing phone tag about getting a forum together to discuss exactly that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. If you would, could you give me a holler when that's going on? If I can, I'd like to make it.
Certainly.
Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Andabumadu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I'll keep my comments brief, and I'll just say I must be a model citizen because I've never been pulled over by Bowie police. So thank you.
You just jinxed yourself.
I know, right? Thank you so much for all your work, and I apologize for having a hat on. I'm anemic, so it's freezing. My first comment is around kind of just what you shared around our compensation model and our sign-on bonuses. I think that's a remarkable approach. And I do agree that it's not sustainable to offer these large sign-on bonuses because that doesn't transition into retention, like you mentioned. And so I think going through this budget cycle, what I would be curious to know is just understand how are we packaging our compensation package and making it attractable in addition to all the nice things that you talked about, like our retirement packages or like the quality of life and what it is like to work in the Bowie Police Department. I think that's a remarkable approach. Did you want to comment or respond? Okay. I didn't know if you were gonna. So I think that's just a really, I think that's a really spot on approach. I have seen across several different states where they are going to these career fair and offering these large sign-on bonuses, which I don't necessarily think is a position that we want to be in, because that doesn't guarantee that the officers will stay. So great approach there. My main question is really around crime increase in South Bowie. I've had a number of residents email me or reach out about perceived crime increase in Bowie. And I think really what they're referring to is car break-ins, to be honest with you. I don't think they're referring to any type of homicides or any type of violent acts, but that's my assumption. So I'd just like to see if you have any comments on that or anything that you'd like to share in regards to South Bowie.
I will go you one better. If you look on your desk, I left you a piece that came after the packet was submitted. It breaks down, crime is actually, calls for service actually dropped in South Bowie. What we did, I know that you had some concerns around Pointer Ridge, so we did a mile circumference around Pointer Ridge, and you'll see some heat maps and some other assorted pretty things. But the only thing that went up, overall numbers are down. Motor vehicle theft went up by 8 to 13 in 2022. And we had a spat where there were probably 4 or 5 recovered stolen autos dropped off into the P section. Shoplifting went up by 4. Package theft went up by 2. Burglaries went up by 1. And there were 2 additional weapons violations. And the rest of those numbers all went down. So in the aggregate, it's all down. But again, you have the numbers in front of you, and if you look at some of the heat maps for each offense, you'll kind of get an idea of how they circle and fit around Pointer Ridge.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. And then my last question is around, we had a comment earlier this evening around community policing, and there was a request made to see the police get out more in the community. Now, I do know that your officers are already doing that and holding a number of different events to engage with residents. Is there just a disconnect on the awareness of what's going on and that these activities are already happening? And if so, what is your recommendation to us as a council as how we can make people more aware that these things are already happening?
I actually talked to the gentleman afterwards, and he's on alert, but he follows Nextdoor, but he's not a big social network person. And that's one of our challenges, right? So one of the things that we're looking at again is utilizing Alert Bowie in a more proactive manner versus waiting for something to happen and giving an emergency alert. We want to use it as a more informational, and again, you've got the boxes you can check off. If you don't want to get that stuff, you don't have to. But we want to try to add something to say that, the new Chief Chat is out, or this is out, or the Hyundais and Kias are issues. Check this, hit this link to get some tips on how to keep those safe. So we're looking at, always constantly looking at better ways to communicate, better ways to get our message out. The thing about visibility, even if we're completely stock full, visibility can be kind of subjective sometimes. And what I mean by that is, I get home at 5 o'clock, I go in my door at 5:05, cruiser comes by at 5:10, I don't see the police, you're not in my neighborhood, right? So, that's not to say that we have the level of saturation that we want at the moment because of staffing. But even when we're fully staffed, it can be a hit or miss game if you see the cruiser on the street or not. So, and again, that is just having conversations with people and setting the expectation and getting, getting the word out. The same thing with, we're probably due for another type forum where we talk about numbers, we talk about staffing, we talk about our org chart on, okay, we have this many people, here's how many people are in patrol, how many people in investigations, and what are these people doing, and what do these numbers actually mean in real life terms of seeing a cruiser on the street.
Thank you. That's super helpful. My last question is just around expansion and kind of just what your plans are there. We have approximately 1,368 houses that will be up in District 4 by, I want to say, 2026. So what are your expansion plans to really be able to meet that demand of the housing that's growing?
And again, that's going right into our strategic plan.
Okay, good.
So we'll talk about it. If no one else has any comments on what we've already spoken about, we can move right into that, if that's what you'd like.
Oh, is it next? Is the strategic plan next
Yes.
tonight? Oh, wow, okay.
At least the introduction of it.
Oh, okay. Okay, Mr. Mayor, that's all for me. Thank you. You're doing a great job. Thank you. Please keep it up.
All right, so included in your packet was the strategic plan. Again, I want to thank Deputy Chief Preston for taking the lead on this. We had a lot of help with it. We did not do this in a vacuum. I want to thank the Public Safety Committee, members of our Police Citizens Academy who helped out. We had finance, Byron from finance sat in on it. We had planning, we had Jesse, we had Kay, we had a community outreach specialist, all at the table talking about where we should be going and where the community thinks we should be going. So one of the things that we looked at was process and what we have now. So we looked at response times, which is why we were created in the first place, because the county just wasn't able to get us the steady, good response times. So we've got an average response time of 5 to 6 minutes. Priority response was 1 to 2 minutes. So how do we maintain that when we're increasing our land mass and we're increasing our population, especially with South Lake? So what we did is we looked at the growth numbers, and then we did a SWOT analysis. So we looked at our strengths, which include the number one strength that we've always had is community support. We cannot stress enough how important that is and how rare it can be to have the kind of community support that we have. Along with that support came partnerships and diversity. And I'm just kind of going right through page 6 of the strategic plan. And it helps that we match our community almost to the letter. We talk about being CALIA accredited, which again, thank you to Captain Jefferson for taking the lead on that. Then we looked at some of our weaknesses. Our weaknesses included staff. That's the obvious one, trying to maintain, get in and maintain quality officers. We talked about supervisory development and how important that is. Then we looked at our staffing numbers. The average, again, is 2.74 per population, and we're at 1.59. So if you look at Greenbelt or even Laurel's got a population of 25,734, and they've got 70 officers. Annapolis has a population of under 40,000, they have 118 now. So, we have to be realistic. And one of the things that we have to really open our eyes to and remember how we got here and remember how we've kind of grown and, financially, tax raises, I know it's an ugly word, but they were kind of built into the plan when we were created. So we've been operating and growing and maintaining on an old tax rate that wasn't really in the formula. So when it comes time to looking at how we're going to grow, that's going to be a part of the conversation that thankfully I won't be a part of for that. So we look at opportunities next. Opportunities for increasing visibility and proactive interaction. So do we look at, as policing shifts, how do we increase the number of positive interactions that we have with our community? It can't be just all enforcement. It has to be positive interactions, relationship building, trust building. We can't always be the hammer. You have to be the open hand and the handshake and the conversation. We have to be able to evaluate our departmental structure. So we have to look top down. How do we operate? Are we using our resources most efficiently? One of the things that you'll see in our budget when we present it is a goal of doing a desk audit for any sworn officers that are in administrative positions at the moment. And we have to see if that's the best way to utilize those sworn positions, or would it be more effective to civilianize them? It would cost another FTO or FTE to put that civilian in, but that civilian is a lot cheaper than a sworn officer, and we can put that sworn officer back on the street. A couple of our threats: recruitment, retention, and attrition. One of the downfalls of hiring everybody at the same time, or a lot of people at the same time, is they all come up for retirement at the same time. I'm slotted for retirement in November. So a couple people not too far behind me. So we have to look at those numbers and be prepared to look at the potential of some retirements and attrition, losing it out to those. So you look at the expanding development and service demands. When we talk about South Lake, we look at those things, and we look at, will we have to actually even restructure our beats depending on, how much South Lake pulls us to the south. Maybe we go to a north-south beat structure versus what we have right now. So we have to be, again, flexible enough. We talked about fiscal constraints on page 11. So, we're going to have to find a way to increase our revenues. So some of the goals that came out of our strategic plan was crime prevention and education, talking about trying to use high visibility patrol, increase education efforts to educate and encourage the community on crime prevention, control our speeding, again through automated enforcement as well as traditional traffic enforcement. We want to increase community involvement and interaction. Again, that's one of the core tenets of community policing. We've got to focus on customer service and problem solving. We have to be better about utilizing our citizen volunteers to help at community events. They're already out there, but how else can we utilize them? Say at the Bowie Town Center, right? Handing out information to people. We need to concentrate on workplace, on page 13, workplace development and wellness. One of our goals is to increase the number of sworn officers by 15 by 2028. And I think that's a relatively conservative number for where we need to be. But when we look at the fiscal constraints and the challenges economically, we need to look at possibly just spreading that out, maybe hire 3 additional officers per year. And we're also not going to sit up here and claim that we can get 3 officers. I've got 10 openings now that we're fighting to fill. And here we are talking about trying to hire more. So we realize that, and we're willing, we need to be flexible enough to say, look, let us fill the 10, and then we can look at the next 3, and maybe we allocate funds mid-year or towards the end of the year. We just need to have the goal, and if the council wants to go that direction, have that goal of hiring these folks when we can. And there's no sense allocating money we're not going to spend for additional people. But if we know that, there's a promise or an intent to do that, if we can, get our ranks up and the opportunity comes, we need to be able to move quickly and be agile enough to capture those opportunities. Number 4 in our goals is to explore and implement smart use of technology, again, through cameras, crime analysis, traffic counting devices. We've been looking at some portable LPR programs or cameras that unfortunately will require a change in the statute at the state level to be able to use, just because of the way the back end is structured. But again, how do we leverage information gathering through, cameras on poles, capturing vehicles as they come in back and forth through the city? If we can capture that data from the main thoroughfares, 301, 50, we're going to capture the bad guys that are coming, either they're coming in or they're coming out, and we can use that for investigative means and ways to solve and track folks, track our bad guys. But again, the main goal and what I at least want to plant the seed tonight is the goal of expansion of the officers over that 5-year plan, or that 5-year term, and trying to do it again in a reasonable and fiscally responsible way. But you asked, a couple of folks asked how we're going to try to do that and how we're going to address the growing population, especially as South Lake comes on, Melford starts to kind of fill up a little bit. That's how we plan to do it, and we at least want to plant that seed. I know we have budgets coming up to talk about, so a lot of that will be included in those discussions, but we also are realistic enough to know that we're not going to ask for money until we can actually, fill those slots. And I'll wait for comments on the strategic plan. And again, thank you for everybody who contributed. It was a great group effort, everybody coming from a different direction. It was very holistic, and it was really a productive process.
Hey, Chief, I'd like to say thank you to you and your team, because that strategic plan looked like you're addressing the issues and trying to be very forward-thinking and forward-looking. I would say, if the opportunity avails itself, please, I'd like to talk with you, because, we've had historically a real problem before with recruitment, particularly in public safety. And I was fortunate enough to have the county outsource all of the background investigations to me, in which we not only met those, we became written up in the paper for having accomplished it out of the entire DMV area, being able to do that. So what I'd like to do is, if we get a chance to talk, just see if some of those lessons learned from what we did then might be able to be applicable now.
Certainly.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, any other comments, questions? Hearing none, again, thank you for everything this evening. Chief, the whole team, all your staff, all of the officers, we appreciate all that everyone does for public safety, particularly our police department. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I will now open the floor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to closed session under the statutory authority of the Maryland Annotated Code, General Provisions, Article 3-305B7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Hearing discussion. Hearing none. I call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your participation.